Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
New Seas Ahead by Peacelight24. Nakama means you never have to say goodbye or be alone, in which Monkey D. Lucy, future Pirate King, and Roronoa Zoro, future world's greatest swordsman, are dumb and everyone else is long-suffering. Or, things with them are always do or die, and love is just the same. Nakama ship, pining, Zorox Fem Lucy. Adios.
Are we there yet? No, Lucy. Are we there yet? No, Lucy. And now, Lucy, Nami snaps. She plucks one of her tangerines with a little more aggression than usual. We have another week of sailing before we get to Wano. We're not there yet, Kanit. Lucy pouts at her navigator, arms crossed over her chest. I'm so bored though. And it's been weeks since Big Mom, and you won't let me cut my hair. Nami presses her palm to her forehead and lets out a long, slow breath. I told you, Kinnaman said everyone wears their hair longer on Wano. Especially adults, and especially women. We're going to try to blend in, so stop trying to cut off your hair with a butter knife, please. Lucy scowls and crosses her arms. It's itchy, she complains, and it is. It's too long now, resting on her collarbones and getting caught in her jacket. She hates it. She's tempted to rip it all out of her skull if this continues much longer. Nami just rolls her eyes. It wouldn't itch if you would properly wash it, she grumbles. Go bother Brooke if you're bored. Sanji-kun's busy with dinner. Well, that wasn't a bad suggestion. Lucy looks at Nami's basket of fruit with interest. Is he making the fruit tart you like? Nami gives her a warning look, angling herself between Lucy and the fruits. There's no need. Lucy learned her lesson about touching Nami's tangerines ages ago. Maybe. Lucy grins at her. Yummy. Call me when he finishes, and then she runs off to the other end of the ship, where Brooke is slowly strumming something on his guitar. Lucy lands in front of him on her knees, and laughs a little when he yelps in fright. Brooke, she greets, play me a song. Brooke laughs and adjusts his guitar. Of course, Lucy-san. What would you like to hear? Lucy considers, tilting her head to the wind, something beautiful. Brooke gives the impression of a smile, and strums all 6 strings as he thinks. Ah, I have just the thing. Of course he does. She thanks Brooke preemptively and hops up to her place on Sunny's figurehead, her special seat atop the lion. She doesn't sit though, she's got too much excitement in her blood for that. Instead, she wraps her arms around the spikes of Sunny's mane and leans forward so her body is tipped over the sea. Brooke's music drifts up to her, a melody woven with something like hope and joy and yearning too. She doesn't recognize it, hasn't heard him play it before, but it suits her mood regardless. And of course, it's beautiful. Brooke would never disappoint her. Lucy closes her eyes, feels the wind throw her hair back and her hat catch on the string around her neck. Positioned like this over Sunny's bow, she can almost feel the heartbeat of the ship cutting through the waves in time with her own. Brooke's song swells, the yearning taking over for the moment. She thinks of the crew that she's meeting on Wano and aches. She opens her eyes, and the sea glows golden and shining as it lights the path to her nakama. Her heart lurches for them, and she can almost imagine she feels them, tiny pinpricks of color and sound and vibrancy in the distance reaching back for her. Brooke's music shifts again, ringing with play and laughter and recovery from heartbreak. She laughs a bit, delighted, and grins wider when she notes it's the sadness of the song that makes it beautiful. Like a grain of sand in an oyster creates a pearl, like the way her dream aches in her bones. Lucy closes her eyes again, lets the music take her where it will. I'm coming, she promises the imagined souls her heart is thrown out to. Wait for me. And Lucy swears. She can hear their answer in the strum of Brooke's guitar, as if the sea itself connects them, her heart transmitted with the sky. When Brooke's song ends and he transitions to another, she can feel the whole ocean swell in response. We'll keep them safe for you, the world seems to promise. Lucy offers back her thanks with a laugh and a smile, and trembles with the joy of beautiful things. They arrive on Wano under a starry sky and a new moon. Law's submarine proves useful in getting around the island defenses without incident, and they depart the polar tang on the northwest side of the country. It's called Ringo, Kinnaman explains from the helm LS deck. It's a land of snow and ice, and it'll be easiest to enter here. This prefecture had a smaller population than all the rest even in its heyday. It'll be quiet now. So Law orders the Polar Tang into a cove, and leaves a skeleton crew on the ship to maintain it under the waves while the rest of them troop onto the icy shores of Wano's coast. Whatever Zoro was expecting of Wano, an icy winter island wasn't it? Still, there's the strangest sense of familiarity here, with the ice-frosted trees and snow-covered peaks of the mountains. Lucy would like this place, he thinks, and Chopper would too. Usopp catches his eye, a wistful look on the younger boy's face, and Zoro thinks their thoughts are probably similar. Kinnaman finds clothes for them all quickly, but only by scavenging the empty homes they come across. Where are all the people? Usopp asks, frowning at the striped hakama Kinnaman procures for him. Each child of Ringo born was gifted a katana, to be with them for all of their days. They were buried with them. Kinnaman's face is distant. This used to be a place where samurai congregated. They resisted, before. They would have resisted until the last of them were gone. They're all silent after that. Zoro rests a hand on Wado Ichimonji's hilt. It was Kuina's katana before, it still is. She would have been buried with it had Zoro not asked to carry it for her. The trek through Ringo is long and deathly cold, and none of them waste much time asking questions or complaining. Some of them curse the cold, but it makes Zoro's skin feel bright and alive with the bite of it, makes him want to train. Something about the austere winter landscape and the lonely shrines feels like a homecoming. It's almost like seeing the Sunny again back when he returned to Sabaody, though the joy he felt then is more akin to a bittersweet sorrow now. He would have liked to see Ringo when it was full of heart and samurai. Raizo is more willing to tell tales of the people here than Kinnaman, and he offers them a few anecdotes over the chattering of his teeth. This is the homeland of Ryuma himself, scion of the Shimotsuki clan. His shrine is to the south of here, almost to Hikumai. Raizo gives Zoro a serious glance. All of Wano will recognize Shisui on sight if they see it, and they will not be so understanding as this of a thief who insists on using it. Zoro scowls at the ninja and shifts his grip to the black blade. I'd like to see them say something about it. Raizo just shakes his head and presses on. Kinnaman shivers and mutters about ghosts, but none of the Wano natives make another comment about Shisui. But, Shimotsuki, Zoro tests slowly, I know that name. Kanjuro looks back at him, dodging a snow-laden branch. How so? The clan is. Well, we believe they're all dead now. It was one of the great houses of Wano. Ringo was their ancestral homeland, though they served in Hikumai as well. Zoro shrugs, not sure how to explain the village he'd grown up in was named the same. Probably a coincidence, despite the apparent similarities in architectural taste. It's a village in East Blue, Robin chimes in, and Zoro turns to give her a confused look. She smiles, mysterious as always. There's a dojo master there affiliated with the revolutionaries. Zoro raises an eyebrow. That seems radical for sensei. He's a strong, kind, and honorable man. But Zoro can't see him ever leaving the dojo to go fight the government. Maybe it's a different dojo master? I really hate winter islands, Frankie grumbles, and his joints are creaking a bit with cold. Zoro thinks about metal and fussy organs and acknowledges the older man's discomfort is probably more than a little significant. Don't worry, Momo assures the cyborg, smiling bright and with more excitement than Zoro's ever seen on his face. The rest of my country is much more looks out over the frozen forests and tries not to feel insulted on its behalf. The rustle of wind through the trees seems to answer his efforts with brutal acknowledgement. The kind that refines and strengthens the body, refines the mind, and tests the heart. Shisui's void expands in his grip, like it recognizes a kinship in the wind. Zoro can see how a place like this would breed samurai from birth. Annoying as it is to be separated from her crew again, it's not too big a deal. Since fighting with Katakuri, the glow in the back of her head has stayed a fixture, the scope of her sight permanently expanded. She is, always, in the present moment and also an instant or two ahead. Lucy can feel her crew's presence on Wano, can hold the whole island in her sight now even if it's blurry and indistinct a mile or so out. Everyone's here except for Jimbei, the 8 of them lighting up like stars across the island. And Zoro is close. She can feel it. His voice blazes not far away, the steady gong of his heartbeat ringing out to bolster her own senses. She'd go to him immediately. It's been 2 months, but Tama is a cute kid, excitable and brave. Lucy likes her. She calls Lucy her big sister. It's the first time anyone's called her that, looked up to her like that. She can't just leave the kid alone. And Ace knew her, loved her, if Grandpa Knows is correct. By Tama's own admission, Ace was Tama's shanks, her whole reason for wanting to set out to sea. Lucy would maybe save Tama based on that alone if she didn't already like the kid herself, if Tama's illness wasn't already her fault. All this time and she's still following Ace across the sea. She'll have to reach Raftel before that stops, she thinks. Lucius never informed someone of his death before. Especially not someone who loves him. It hurts to watch the shock and horror and pain play out on Tama's little face. Lucy withstands it stoically, not willing to inflict her own pain on the kid. Where can I find a doctor? She asks Tama's guardian. He tells her, and then lends her a red kimono with large blue patches to wear. All I have is a men's kimono, the guardian apologizes, but it will be less suspicious than your ridiculous clothes. Lucy scowls at him, but Grandpa Knows insists he's correct about the clothes. The kimono he lends her is comfortable enough, but she refuses to give up the bust strap. She's fought shirtless too many times by now. Her enemies are really into disintegrating her clothes. And she's pretty sure Hancock made this thing with like, indestructible leather or something. She's about to leave when something pings off her hockey. Something dark and malevolent and, there, beneath the floorboard. Lucy kicks it, hinging the loose floorboard upright, and withdraws the chest below. What? How did you do that? The guardian asks, but Lucy ignores him and unravels the casing. Inside are 2 katana, one white, the other dark purple, like a bruise. Lucy's hand hovers over them before reaching for the solid purple one and grasping the scabbard. It's heavy, and there's something, well, she doesn't know. She's not a swordswoman. But it feels dark and powerful, and the craftsmanship is exquisite, even to Lucy, who barely knows a good katana from a doornail. You cannot take the cursed blade, Enma. It is sacred and it will kill you. Put that down this instant. Grandpa Knows demands, but Lucy just slots it into her sash. She has a feeling about this. It was calling to me, she explains, because it is. She can't hear it exactly, there's no voice, but she can feel it reaching out to her nonetheless. She wanders over to Tama, hoists her up, and turns towards Dog for a ride. Thanks for the katana. Lucy calls over her shoulder. I'm going to take it now. Idiot. The Grandpa Knows shouts, but Lucy's already too far away to hear him. On her back, Tama's skin feels too warm. It's Lucy's fault for eating her birthday rice. Lucy's going to find her something better than rice, and she's going to make sure the kids she and Ace both like lives in a country where she can have food every day, and drink from the river without falling ill. She swears it. For Tama, and for Ace. Arriving at the flower capital goes surprisingly smoothly, for all that the Wano outsiders are out of their depth with local customs. Kinnaman helps them assimilate into different roles around Wano while giving them very basic instructions on how not to make asses of themselves. This is not a thing most of the Straw Hats would ever give a crap about, but they are trying to lay low, so Zoro tries to learn. Robin and Usopp gain posts in the capital, Robin to infiltrate Orochi's palace and Usopp to keep an ear to the ground on the streets. Frankie is assigned to a carpenter in Hikumai to obtain blueprints for the raid, and Kinnaman takes one look at Zoro, gives up on giving him a post, and is told to simply not get noticed. He finds that no one much cares about a lone swordsman who carries a gourd of sake everywhere. Zoro is no good at remembering to speak formally, but Kinnaman insisted it was better to try and fuck up than to just pretend it didn't matter. Both would grab attention, but the former would be dismissed more than the latter. So Zoro wanders, mostly around the capital, and does his best to not be noticed. It's easier than he thought, and that's strange. There's something about Wano. A familiarity in the way sakura blossoms keep falling year-round, the way the homes line the streets, the soil beneath his feet. It's not a sensation that's as strong in the capital as it was in Ringo, but Zoro still notices it all the same. There's an energy in the air he likes, even if the people are constantly terrorized and he keeps having to pick his battles more than he would like. He uses only Wado and Kitetsu the few times he draws a blade, and keeps Shisui in its scabbard. He doesn't want to draw attention, after all. And then the thing with the magistrate happens and, well. Okay, so, killing the magistrate, possibly not Zoro's greatest idea. But fuck if he gives a shit, because that guy smells like blood and is trying to frame Zoro for his crimes. And Shisui screams at him in outrage like it never has before, moaning a void as great as the sky in protest as the murderer draws the black blade and defiles it with his toque. So Zoro kills him, injures the rest of the idiots who tried to make him commit seppuku without any proof, and then wanders off to get drunk. So irritating, seriously. Well, then there are posters with his face on them, and Zoro feels a hunch pulling him to curry anyway. So the night of the next full moon he wanders into a wasteland with jerks beating up women and kids and takes up his actual title of Ronin because they piss him off. The people in Curry don't have anything to pay him with. That's fine, he survives by hunting the animals out in the wastes and the river water is tasty. The locals look at him with some horror when he tells them this, but fuck if he knows why. Within a week he develops something of a reputation, and when capital law enforcement comes looking for him, the people in Curry don't say a word about the scarred Ronin who's been mopping up Orochi's lackeys. It's unnecessary and he tells people to knock it off, but they keep doing it anyway. Day by day, the feeling in his gut grows. He's right where he needs to be, something is coming, but he doesn't know what. He stays in Curry for weeks like this. He ends up sleeping beneath bridges, against trees. He keeps to the wastes, away from towns, and if he visits them it's to get a few supplies or buy a bottle of sake. It reminds him of his bounty hunting days, before he met his girlfriend. He thinks of Lucy often. He wonders how long it will be before she arrives with the others, if everything went as well as it seemed from the papers. Sometimes he looks toward Curry's coast, Kitetsu burning in his palm, and he wants to follow the path to her. But no, it's fine, he's exactly where he needs to be. His captain will be here soon. It's nowhere near as bad as the Separatio still aches for missing her. He won't be happy until she's in arm's reach and he can look her over, catalog any new scars for safekeeping, see the smile on her face, feel her pressed against his ribcage. At night, he always feels too cold. He's a light sleeper at the best of times, let alone when he keeps waking up because he tries to find her and the rest of his crew subconsciously. 2 months apart apparently isn't enough to break the habit. Between the restless sleep, his solitary existence in the wastes, and the devastating lack of access to alcohol, it's a real surprise when he wakes up one morning to find Shisui missing. It's impossible. He hasn't even drawn the katana since the magistrate. No one should know what it is. He seethes over its loss. Wado and Kitetsu are no help, humming quietly in the back of his head with no concern towards their partner. There's no sign of Shisui, no sign of the thief, and Zoro spends 3 days searching all of Curry before he's forced to admit he's got no idea where his katana went. There's not even a whisper of a void on the wind, and no matter how many blacksmiths and shady arms dealers and swordsmen he shakes down, no one knows of a thief as skilled as the one that took Shisui. Zoro's carried that blade for 2.5 years, and his soul feels untethered without it. He should be able to hear it at least, but it was either taken so far away so quickly that he can't hear it now or something's interrupting the connection. He thinks about going to search for it, thinks about heading to Hikumai or the capital or Kibi to hunt for the blade, but he can't make himself leave Curry. Something is coming. He's so sure of it, that this is exactly where he needs to be. Wado only confirms this when he leans on the blade for clarity. So no matter how much he wants to go scour all of Wano for his lost katana, he stays put because something is coming. 2 katana instead of 3 feels wrong. Still, Zoro hunkers down beside a tree, sips the last of his sake, and waits. The wastes of Wano are, well, Lucy has seen countries devastated before, but the contrast between the greenery of Wano's coast and the empty dust bowl that is its interior is stunning. She's never been to a place that felt like poison before, not even impelled down. It even smells acrid here. The very land is screaming. It reaches for Lucy like it knows why she's here, why she came to this island in the first place. Lucy doesn't answer the call. Can't really, but she listens nonetheless. There's history here, a long and unbroken chain of violence and poverty and stubbornness and fruitless hope. She guides Dog across the yawning wastes despite the way it sends a chill up her spine. It's only when she's about halfway to the doctor Grandpa knows shooed her towards that she realizes she's heading directly for Zoro. Coincidence? Maybe. She urges Dog faster. Her presence is masked right now to avoid attracting attention while she's got a sick kid with her, so it takes Zoro longer than usual to notice her, but she knows the exact instant he picks up on her presence. His voice flares warm and solid, reaches for her. She can feel him turn in her direction, can feel the way his presence practically shouts at her, and her heartbeat speeds up in response. Anticipation bubbles in her belly. I missed you. I missed you. 2 damn months. She can feel her soul reaching for him, her heart pounding against her sternum like it's trying to fling itself at the one who claimed it. She finally spots him in the middle of the empty lands, jogging toward her with a visible grin on his face. Lucy smiles to match it, and after a few more strides of Dog's easy lope, she launches herself at him at full speed. Zoro stops, squawks, and tries to square up to intercept her, but she's rocketing forward way too fast to be caught and they both end up tumbling in the rocky earth until Lucy manages to pin him down. He looks so indignant lying there in the dirt under her that she laughs, breathless and giddy. After a moment Zoro laughs too, and the sound catches Lucy's breath in her lungs. He's so warm beneath her palms, so vital with life and strength and heart. It's her swordsman, all bulging muscle and hard jaw and decisive scars and honor. His silver eye is as brilliant and stark as ever, his green hair just as ridiculous, and his earrings still fall from his ear in an even row down his neck. His skin is a few shades darker than it was before, but he's Zoro, he's hers, and he's right where he's supposed to be, like he's been waiting here for her to find him. The look on his face is full of a mirrored joy, and something in her shivers into place. She feels more like herself than she has in weeks. What the hell are you wearing? He asks, and tugs at the patched men's kimono falling off her shoulders. Lucy makes a face at him. I was told I couldn't wear my shorts, she complains, and Zoro huffs a laugh. The small one she likes, but not the belly laugh that lights her up with warmth and victory whenever she draws it out. You look good like this though, she compliments, and it's the truth. The Wano clothes suit her swordsman. She likes the haori especially. It emphasizes the broadness of his shoulders. Zoro's gaze deepens at the comment, and Lucy feels herself quiet in response, aching and needy and suddenly more yearning than giddy. She traces his hairline with her right hand, swallowing hard when he leans into the touch and kisses the inside of her wrist. He keeps eye contact with her while he does it, like he's daring her to move, daring her to pull away. She flushes, despite herself. Hey, she whispers, and she feels almost shy. Zoro sits up to take her face between his rough palms, and the movement rocks her back into his lap. Something about the bigness of his hands and the danger she knows he carries in them makes the gentleness he holds her with just a little heartbreaking in the best of ways. He smells like blood and steel and sake, his scent strong enough to even drown out the poison of the wasteland around them. Hey, he answers just as quietly, and the way he looks at her makes her heart lurch in her chest like it just remembered how to beat, bursting with anticipation and delight and ferocity. Lucy kisses him, just a sweet press of her mouth against his. She wants to show him how much she missed him in the softness of it. His lips are a bit chapped, but they're gentle against hers, matching her movement for movement and longing for longing. He tastes like sake and dango and meat. Lucy pulls back, mouth watering, and as Zoro blinks away surprised she asks, "Do you have meat?" Zoro blinks at her, and then laughs the deep belly laugh she loves, and then draws her in to kiss her properly, his breath still hitching from laughter but refusing to give her space. He doesn't let her up for air and he kisses her like he wants to drown in her, and between the lack of oxygen and all the joy and affection and relief he's projecting, Lucy forgets about the meat. Instead, she grips his shoulders and pulls herself into him, filled with desperation and fire and need, like her body only just remembered their 2-month fast and wants to make up for lost time now. Zoro bites her lip, a tiny thing that makes Lucy burn and shiver, and Zoro smells so good. Zoro, she calls because she likes the sound of his name, and there's a noise in the back of his throat that she treasures, covets deep in her heart. She missed him. She missed him. The furious press of his lips against hers, the way he simply lets her take as she shoves her tongue down his throat. It all makes her feel electric, even vivified out here in the emptiness of a country she's been asked to save. She's the freest she's ever been with Zoro here, and strength in their limbs, and she could live off of this feeling of reunion for weeks if Sanji would let her starve that long. It's shocking when Dog whines behind her, insistent and loud and an unwelcome interruption to her hand's exploration of her swordsman's new outfit. But then Lucy remembers, groans, and pulls Nfused by the sudden space between them, his eyebrows pinched unevenly and his scowl prominent. Lucy swallows the urge to kiss that look off his face and speaks before he takes matters into his own hands. "I've got to tell you," she explains sheepishly. "Zoro, there's a kid." Zoro's eye blows comically wide and his face pales. His hands tremble faintly on her flat, very much not pregnant stomach. "You mean, you're—" "No, thank God," Lucy assures him, and gasps a hysterical giggle at the sheer horror of that idea, and points to the giant yellow dog boar. "Over there. There's a sick kid who passed out, she needs a doctor." "Oh thank fuck," Zoro breathes, and slumps in relief. He doesn't make any move to let go of her though. Lucy should stand up, brush herself off and get Tama to a doctor. She got a little carried away, seeing Zoro again. They need to leave now. She hesitates just for a heartbeat. She wants more time with him, wants to bask in this and soak him in and familiarize herself with all his new scars. She wants to stay right here, with Zoro wrapped around her and his silver eye crinkling at the corner and an uncharacteristically soft smile on his face. Lucy takes a deep breath and stands. Zoro lets her, but he looks up at her with his palms pressed to the dirt and a devastating fondness in his eye and in his smirk, and Lucy's body thrums like a plucked string in the face of it. "Come on," she calls, and she holds her hand out to help him up. "Let's go." Zoro takes it and stands, but he doesn't let go when he's up. Instead, his thumb caresses her knuckles before he raises her hand to kiss the back of it. "Ai, Sencho," he murmurs against her skin, voice low and rich and his eye locked on her face the whole time. He smirks like he knows exactly what he's doing, and he probably does because he's an asshole. Lucy's cheeks burn, her face probably as red as the borrowed kimono, and she doesn't have it in her to object when Zoro rests his other hand on the nape of her neck and kisses her forehead, gentle and promising. "I missed you," she thinks, but there's no breath in her lungs to speak it to him. Zoro notices her fluster, and looks entirely too pleased with himself when he pulls back and starts to lead her toward dog. "Hey, where the hell did you get that katana? I swear it's been screaming at me this whole—" "You there, are you the Ronin Zorojiro? Wanted to cross Wano?" It's a voice that echoes against the barren land around them, and Lucy looks up to see a party approaching. Zoro groans and releases her hand to take up a defensive stance, his back to dog. There's something wrong with it. Lucy frowns, studying her swordsman, and then her eyes widen in shock. "Where's Shisui?" Zoro just shakes his head, lips pressed tight together. All previous softness is gone. His gaze locked on the intruders. Lucy blinks away the shock. How could Zoro lose his katana? It shouldn't be possible. And takes up her own stance, more offensive than defensive, to compensate should Zoro need it. There will be time later for her and Zoro to catch up properly. Right now there's a fight to win, and a kid to care for. She feels Zoro's focus sharpen at her side, senses it slice through the air like one of his blades. They're together. There's nothing that could tear the two of them apart now, not even Kaido himself. Lucy smiles at the aggressors charging them, and settles in for a fight. One day, Zoro is going to manage a reunion with his girlfriend that doesn't get interrupted. One day it'll happen, and they'll be able to reunite properly, with good sake and barbecue and a fight. Maybe fireworks and a bed, who knows. Today is, unfortunately, not that day. Also, why the hell is Lucy's katana so damn loud? He can barely hear Kitetsu and Wado over its racket. Lucy starts to withdraw it, and holy shit, he loves her, but that is not a tool she should be in charge of, holy shit, and then she frowns. "It's not reaching for me anymore," she observes, pouting. "Ah well. Zoro needs 3 anyway. I'll just do what I usually do. Zoro, catch Enma." And then she tosses him the katana, scabbard and all, like it's a broken toy she decided wasn't so interesting after all. Zoro catches it with his right hand on pure reflex and a lifetime of being drilled in respecting katana. The moment his fingers touch the lacquer, he gasps. There's a hunger in this blade, a curse so ferocious and violent it's practically vibrating out of its scabbard. It wants to consume, cut everything, swallow the sun itself. In a good enough swordsman's hands, it could. Enma latches onto his soul like a parasite. It sings songs of promise and power and conquering all there is to conquer. If only Zoro will withdraw the blade. Enma will help him become the strongest. Enma will let him protect his captain from death itself. Enma will lend him power, strength, will. All he has to do is reach back, meld himself to the katana, and together they will consume the whole of the world. Zoro blinks and comes back to himself by following Watto's icy ring out of Enma's swallowing. His hand is clenched around the purple scabbard so hard his knuckles are white, his arm shaking. Lucy is giving him an odd look. Zoro breathes out slowly, and places the scabbard on his right hip, instead of his left. That was weird. Even Kitetsu only uses Zoro's own impulses to get its way. A katana has never tried to actively convince him before. Enma screams at him, as clear and loud as any of his blades, and he ignores it. He's not going to draw an unknown cursed blade in battle when Lucy's right beside him. Not unless he's got no choice. Kitetsu cries out volatile and angry in his left hand, begging for bloodshed, gnawing on his spirit. And Watto chimes a clear note in the back of his mind. He is a swordsman, and Lucy's first mate. He'll deal with the problem at hand. Zoro follows Lucy into the fray, and ignores Enma's wounded ache as he fights. Zoro is given very explicit instructions to rest, don't move, don't bleed, from Okiku, which he thinks is a little bit overkill for a tiny little hole in his arm. Lucy seems to agree, but she also isn't letting him get up from the little bench outside the tea house while they wait for Tama's medicine to take effect. It could be worse. The sun is warm today but not so much that it burns, and Lucy blazes beneath his arm like a star. Brilliant power condensed and hidden away. He could almost fall asleep like this, doze off with Lucy cloistered at his side, against his ribcage where he can feel her heartbeat. He feels relaxed for the first time in 2 months. He doesn't nap though, because there are too many people in this town with suspicious intent. Lucis noted it too. Her eyes unfocused in a way that means she's vetting the people around them as much as she can, keeping tabs on the ones she deems dangerous. Also, sue him, he wants to talk to her, he missed hearing her voice. And she looks adorable buried under his haori like this, he wants to take in the image as much as he can. You got stronger, he comments. He noticed it right away, the moment he caught her presence out in the wastes. And when she fought earlier there wasn't a single extraneous movement, like she'd already seen the fight play out and knew exactly where to step and punch and dodge. Lucy smirks and taps her temple. I can see the future, she says mysteriously, and that did explain it. He frowns though, consternated. You suck at that. Lucy scoffs and points to the house across the street from their bench. Door. The rice paper door slides open, and a painfully thin woman in an orange kimono steps out, basket in hand. Lucy nods down the street to a man carrying a bag of sawdust. He's going to trip. And he does, almost taking a tumble into the dirt before catching himself. Zoro raises an eyebrow. Neat trick. More like terrifying. Zoro is decent at precognition. Has to be, with his eye. But he doesn't have the mundane specificity or consistency Lucis achieved. It's amazing growth considering last time he saw her she was still mostly relying on a fight. Shit, he might be the worst at observation hockey on the crew now, with the exception of Usopp. That's not exactly a fair comparison though. I can sense the whole crew across the island, too, she brags, and her smirk tells him she expects him to be impressed. He is. My captain would have to be that strong, he dismisses casually. He's not quite sure how to express his pride any other way. You must have had a good fight or two. He knows she did something dangerous at some point. Lucy nods, smiling. Yep, a few. It was pretty fun. Didn't get to really fight Big Mom though. Sanji's family sucks. She looks up at him with a frown on her lips. You didn't fight anyone fun, did you? You promised you'd wait? No, he assures. The magistrate was just annoying. Cook got his head on straight though. Good. Lucy nods, and she wraps her arms around his waist to squeeze in closer to him. Something tight fixes in Zoro's throat. I missed you doesn't sound like enough. I don't feel complete without you is closer, but he's not dumb enough to try and articulate it, so he just brushes a lock of hair behind her ear. What happened to Shisui? Lucy asks, and he sighs and explains the theft. We'll find it, Lucy resolves, and there's a look in her eye that speaks to world shaking and bells. Someone here must have it. Yeah, Zoro agrees. Someone here probably has his katana. But it's still weird he can't hear the blade, still strange that his connection with it would ever be interrupted. He won that katana in a fair duel. He had the blessing of Ryama's spirit. He should be able to hear it from anywhere on Wano, if it's here. Zoro wonders if Enma and its weirdly aggressive hold on him has anything to do with it, if his connection with Shisui was broken because of it. That doesn't really make sense, but he's suspicious regardless. He has not yet drawn the new katana. He wants to. He's curious, and Enma's frantic eagerness to be used is not helping Zoro with restraint. He probably shouldn't do it in the middle of town though. Something tells him that would be him. Lucy presses her cheek into the space below his shoulder and looks up at him through her eyelashes, her eyes huge and lovely and shining like charcoal in the sunlight. His heart thuds hard in his chest. It would be a wonder if Lucy didn't feel it pounding away against her cheek. Zoro looked really good earlier when he was taking care of the straw guy. Lucy purrs, and Zoro nearly stops breathing at the low note in her voice. It felt good, defending Lucy's back like that. Showing off his strength. Hearing her voice, her complete trust in him to handle it. The way she'd watched him and not the attacks raining down on them. It made something proud and primal preen in his chest, that he could lay a barrier down around what was his and enforce it like he said he would. Lucy makes it sound like it did something for her, too. He'd give a lot for a little privacy right this moment. Then he sees the glint in her eye that's mischievous and heated, and he realizes she knows exactly what she's starting, and exactly how far into nowhere it's going to go. Zoro shifts from an embrace to a headlock as punishment, swallowing her whole with the haori in retaliation. Lucy squawks, giggling, and twists against his hold just enough to make him work for it. Then she realizes she still has access to his sides and sticks her fingers hard beneath his floating rib to catch him by surprise. It does not work, but he lets her up for air anyway, huffing in amusement when he sees the frizzy mess of her hair. Someone tied it back for her in a low knot at the nape of her neck, but the hairs were too loose or not long enough, and more than half of it has fallen out between the fighting and the ride on the dog and his teasing. Lucy tries to pout at him, but she can't quite hold the expression through the remains of her laughter. There's a flush on her cheeks, from excitement or her teasing or both, and oh, he wants to kiss her, but public displays of affection are very much not a thing in Wano. It'll attract attention. Turn around, he tells her to squash the urge before he can ruin Kinnamon's rebellion for the sake of a kiss. I'll fix your hair. Lucy raises an eyebrow at him and does as he says, sitting with a leg on either side of the bench and her back to him. Zoro mirrors her movement and works to gently detangle her hair. It's always softer than he expects, between all the wind and the sea salt and the fighting. Lucy tips her head back, leaning into his hands in a way that isn't entirely helpful, but he doesn't mind. He likes the trust in it, the way she hands herself over to him. It's longer, he notes, before he can take that thought much farther. Longer than he's ever seen her hair before. It reaches below her collarbones. Nami wouldn't let me cut it, she grumbles, said it would be better for blending in. Nami was right, but it's not like Lucy's ever blended in anywhere ever in her life. It was kind of a lost cause from the jump, in Zoro's opinion. He ends up twisting her hair into something resembling a top knot, because that's all he knows how to do. He figures it's fine, Lucy's not going to be swapping out for a women's kimono anytime soon, and from a distance she could pass for a very pretty boy. Probably best to keep her away from people anyway. Lucy hums when he's done, and throws a smile to him over her shoulder. Thanks, Zoro. Something about that smile breaks him, just a little. It's too bright, too simple, just a glimmer of the woman he's missed so much, a casual brilliance dropped into their everyday. He missed this. He missed her. Tom is waking up, Lucy notes, and she stands with her eyes locked on the tea house. Zoro's body acts on that piece of his heart her smile broke, and in a blink he's standing behind her, his arms around her waist. She's shorter than him by a lot, especially when they're standing, but he curves over her until his forehead rests on her shoulder. Lucy freezes, startled by the reaction. But she doesn't resist, so Zoro places his hands over her lower belly, splayed out possessively, a little too intimately for the public eye as he sways her weight into his. Lucy just relaxes into the hold, like she doesn't mind, like she'd be willing to go along with whatever he wants. She shouldn't do that. He'll get greedy, and she already does that enough for both of them. Zoro missed me, Lucy teases. Her voice is light, accepting. It helps. He smiles into her shoulder. Sencho. Every day, every hour, every minute. That's good. I missed you, too. She says it easily and without embarrassment, like she says everything else. And then she adds just as nonchalantly, I slept in your robe. His grip tightens on her, his fingers digging into flesh, and his nose snuffles into her hair. She smells like sunlight and sea salt and star anise, and Zoro wants to drag her away to an empty field for a few hours. Good, he growls, and he relishes the way she shudders against him. He likes it so much when she depends on him, like she's reaching directly into his chest, squeezing his heart. He wants to give her everything. He wants her to take all he is. In the tea house, Zoro can sense people moving around, can sense the slow awakening of the little girl Lucy decided to adopt. He can feel it seize Lucy's attention too, and he senses her indecision in the way her hands rest on his. Not pushing him away, but not holding on, either. Just a little longer, he whispers. Just a few seconds more. Before everything goes insane again, like it always does. They have to take these moments where they can, sometimes. Lucy either acquiesces or comes to the same conclusion, because she cranes her neck back and into his shoulder, as if to give him better access. Zoro closes his eyes and breathes, and after a moment he lets her go. Tama turns out to be fine, which is a relief. And she eats the oshiruko well when they convince her to actually accept it. Tama is a good kid, and a brave one. No one should go hungry, but especially not a kid. The whole town is full of the destitute. It clings to everything in a miasma of pain and sorrow and suffering. And Lucy can hear their voices wailing if she listens hard enough. Zoro keeps watching her, like he's waiting for a signal. It's good that Tama ate today. Lucy wants her to eat tomorrow, too. The kid turns out to be a bit of a clinger. She wedges herself between Lucy and Zoro when she's eating her oshiruko, and she keeps turning big, impressed eyes on her swordsman and then giving Lucy an equally impressed look. It's adorable. Eventually she finishes and her legs kick out between Lucy and Zoro on the bench. She keeps looking between the two of them like there's a puzzle she's trying to figure out. Wanchan, Tama calls, and Lucy hums to acknowledge the question. Are you married? On Tama's other side, Zoro goes very still. Lucy wishes she could see his face better because she's sure his expression is gold. No, Lucy answers simply, I don't want to get married. Tama squints at her. Why not? Lucy shrugs. Sounds complicated, kind of boring. A wedding party might be good though. Sanji's was fun, after all. You would need a groom for that, Lucy Nojo, Kiku chimes in, and Lucy grins at her. That'll be Zoro, Jiro. She adds the suffix a half second too late, still unused to it. Zoro whips around so fast she'd be worried for his neck if his head wasn't so empty. Seriously, who else would she have picked besides him? Suru smiles and folds her hands into her sleeves. One could do worse than the vengeance of Curry. Lucy raises an eyebrow at the epithet, but her questions are cut off by Tama's wide eyes and jostling elbows. He's your boyfriend and your first mate? Of course, Lucy replies gravely, and then whispers so Suru and Kiku can't overhear. All of the best first mates are their captain's boyfriends. Or girlfriends, Lucy amends. Oi, Zoro protests weakly. She's not sure if he's protesting the comment itself or her giving away her identity, but he sounds like there's something stuck in the back of his throat. Tama's eyes are very wide. Wanchan, you're so cool. Lucy is not at all sure how her dating Zoro makes her cooler, but she appreciates the compliment regardless. You hear that? Lucy says to Zoro over Tama's head, I'm cool. Zoro is giving her a look though, something Lucy can't quite read. It passes after a moment, and he rolls his eye at her. She only thinks that because she's never seen you get caught in the rigging, he replies, dry as the curry wastes. Lucy sticks her tongue out at him, but none of the hero worship leaves Tama's eyes. Ah. Lucy's going to have to earn that. As expected, shit goes haywire immediately after the kid wakes up and gets a proper meal. Atsuru nearly gets killed by a bad guy. Lucy's newest adoptee gets kidnapped. There's a sumo competition, and Zoro cuts a few people before Lucy steals her way into paying a debt. Law shows up at some point to bitch and call them idiots. Lucy is entirely undeterred. Zoro has no sympathy, he warned the bastard. Zoro also could have told him it was useless to expect Lucy to behave any differently when faced with a starving child, let alone one she liked, but no one asked his opinion on the matter. There's a look in Lucy's eyes, something solid and burning, and Zoro's seen it on her before when gods were struck down. But the town is saved and Lucy leaves with yet another flock of people screaming their thanks to her. They call her a blessing of Inari and raise baskets of rice above their heads, and some of the elders fall to their knees in prayer. Zoro entertains himself watching Law's face turn purple with apoplectic rage when in the face of their gratitude Lucy only hums, "Oh, we did a good thing. Huh," just to rile the other captain up because of course she does. Zoro's in love with an idiot. He knew this, but it's always hilarious to be reminded. Aside from Law's grumbling, the ride to Odin Castle starts uneventfully. Lucy listens to and ignores Law's various complaints, while Okiku pretends to not be tailing them, and Zoro watches her with suspicion because he likes her but her behavior isn't making any sense. Then he hears it. The echo of a void, faint but present. A chasm of emptiness, or rift. "Shisui," he whispers, and he looks towards Fujiyama. "Shisui?" Lucy asks, and she interrupts Law's whining to turn to Zoro with a question in the frown of her mouth. Zoro nods, shifting to a squat. It's faint and growing fainter. He has to go, has to. Lucy moves from the front of the dog to the back in one quick leap, so she's kneeling in front of him. There's granite in her eyes and in the set of her mouth as she studies him. After a moment she nods, definitive and sure. "Do what you have to," she orders, "don't look back." Something about the phrase hangs oddly in the air, like an omen. Zoro feels a little like screaming. How stupid, to find her immediately and then have to leave her behind. Enma reaches for him, seizes on his upset, whispers of all the feats they could accomplish together if only he'd draw the blade. He could stay by his captain and protect her like he wants, could fill oceans with the blood of the weak if he chose. Zoro pushes it away. "Don't do anything stupid," he tells her, because honestly that's the best he could ask for. Lucy smiles, and it's full of that brilliance and conviction that made him call her captain that first time. "I'd never." Then she kisses him hard, and pulls back. Zoro waits another heartbeat, and then stands up to catch the next handhold on the cliff. "Oi, Roranoa ya, where are you going? You'll get lost." "It's fine, Torao, he can always find me," Lucy reassures, and the reminder eases something in his chest. He can always find Lucy, no matter what. Zoro leaps for the handhold to follow the void, and the dog runs on up the castle, and he doesn't look back. Haki lets Lucy track Zoro's progress across Wano, even as she focuses on the conversation at hand. He makes good speed away from the castle. By the time Kinemon is finished saying "born to boil," Zoro's almost in another prefecture entirely. He'll be fine. He can find his way to her if needed. Then a storm rolls in, and Lucy can feel Torao's panic like a vice around her throat. She doesn't think he was this scared even when Mingo cut his arm off. It doesn't take her long to realize why. Kaido arrives over Leftover Town, and the air floods so thick with Haki even a click and a mountain away that Lucy tastes lightning and fire on her tongue. Feels Kaido's presence like the roar of a sea king as it pummels through her chest. He's at least as strong as Big Mom, maybe stronger. Lucy thinks the scales get kind of broken when comparing emperors. Still, she doesn't fear him. Lucy only feels terror when Kaido's inferno burns straight through a mountain and her crew. Her vision whites out, the loss incomprehensible. His power saturates everything, makes her unable to sense anything beyond her own stalled heartbeat, so thick she can only feel in afterimages. She promised this wouldn't happen again, she promised. The panic and rage make her blind. Beside her, Torao gapes in horror. He makes a sound like he's been gutted. Lucy isn't gutted. Lucy burns. She attacks, blood filled with magma. She tests herself against the beast. Lets her rage cut everything around her. There is blood on Kaido's hands, the blood of a country and the blood of her crew and the blood of a child, and Lucy will take it back from him because she is here, she promised. Desperation has filled her fights before, the kind that speaks of hope, of purpose, maybe of self-preservation. There's none of that in her as she fights now, no calm or thought or planning. It's just rage and hatred that cuts so deep she tastes blood in her mouth from biting her tongue as she screams her enmity. It's ends fought to kill, but it's the first time she knows she won't accept surrender. The first time she knows she won't stop until she's ripping Kaido's scaly corpse apart with her fingernails and drained his blood into the sea. Toro tries to calm her down. He speaks with reason and terror in his eyes. Lucy can barely hear him, even when he grabs her face between his hands and tries to force her to hold his gaze. She snarls and shoves past him, and he doesn't try to touch her after that. In the back of her mind she remembers Rayleigh's cautionary tales about the color of the Supreme King, about how sometimes a conqueror must conquer themselves. Conqueror's haki is the mark of a king, but power can twist even the kind, and it's a dangerous person that twists themselves. For the first time, Lucy ignores the warning. If she hadn't, maybe she would have noticed how Kaido barely returns fire, how he seems almost bored, as if she were merely a pest or a bug to be squashed. Lucy will break Kaido. She will put him on his knees and have him beg for mercy and slaughter him herself. She feels her will scorch her from the inside out as it batters against the tide of rot and decay that is Kaido's power. "I'm going to kill you," she promises, baring her teeth and holstering the oath as a weapon against her guilt. The wastelands are screaming retribution in her ear, and she promised. Finally, Kaido stands before her as a man. There is condescension in his gaze, apathy. "Not like that," he says. He rushes her. Everything goes black. Her chest aches. Toro screams not far away. Kaido looms above her. Her heart's still spitting fire and aching for bloodshed, but her haki is stinging and frazzled in her veins, and she can feel nothing but the short, aching breaths her lungs barely manage. Kaido says something, but she's too far gone to catch it. With the last dregs of her consciousness, she finds the glow of her inner eye, and throws the lens wide until she finds the echo of a heartbeat that's shared with hers. Don't look back. The earth shakes beneath her, and Lucy can't see, but she still glares, oath unfulfilled. Don't look back. The lens shuts. She holds on for as long as she can and hopes he won't look back. He needs to find Shisui. Trust me, she thinks, knowing he can't hear any of this, and then oblivion takes her, soul still burning and rage unabated. There's a battle raging in Kuri. Zoro knows because the sky behind him turns black and bloody and the earth trembles even in Kibi. Lucy's fighting. She's so loud and angry that he can almost hear her even a prefecture away, well outside his range. He can't even hear whatever she's fighting. He wonders what happened. Then Lucy's voice chimes one last time and goes soft. Zoro stops, knuckles going white around Watto's hilt. In his head, Kitetsu wails and swells in outrage, and Watto aches and rings at such a high note that he feels it more than hears. He's off balance, awkward without the void he's carried at his hip for so long, and a new song made of hellfire to replace it. Shisui calls him on, beckoning him forth. Don't look back. The tension in his chest winds to breaking point. He takes a deep breath, and it does not ease the urge to turn around, to place himself between Lucy and anything that might harm her, regardless of his missing blade. Enma could help. Enma could let him do anything. Don't look back. Shisui's voice throbs, the yawning of a void as the katana seeks its master. Lucy is his captain. She gave him orders. Zoro takes one step, and then another, and he lets Shisui's song be his guide. Lucy gains consciousness somewhere in the middle of the wastes, when her head clips a boulder and her arms are almost wrenched out of their sockets. She blinks her eyes open to find a blur of blue above her, the sky. Lucy growls and hacks as the congealed blood at the back of her throat makes her dry heave. She's being dragged along. She can hear the drumbeat of horses. She can feel the earth scraping her back, and it hurts. Lucy tugs at her wrists, and nearly passes out again from the effort. Everything hurts. Whatever. Monkey D. Lucy doesn't bow to fucking pain. She rocks her hips once to gain momentum, and flips onto her stomach. The horses are blurry, indistinct images about 10 paces ahead, and Lucy braces herself before hiking up to her elbows and planting her feet in the earth, intending to stand her ground. She manages to plant her feet. Her legs don't hold her weight. She can't gather the strength in her arms to yank the chains. Something in her back rips audibly, and Lucy faceplants into the earth at speed. She manages to flip onto her back again before she passes out. The next time she comes to, her vision is a little clearer, and she's still being dragged by the horses. She can hear men's voices, but the words are too indistinct for her to catch. She tilts her head back to see what binds her wrists. She's dismayed to find it's sea stone. No wonder she feels so weak. It's starting to sting. It's a cool, unnatural prickle on her skin. She wants them off. Lucy yanks experimentally. All she manages to do is fuck with her inertia and bonk herself on the head with the cuffs. The horse is dragging her mercilessly along. It must be Kaido's men, she realizes, and she thinks of her crew. Fuck, she can't feel them. She can't feel anything. And of Tama, and she levers herself to her feet by sheer force of will. Her legs wobble, and it's impossible to stay standing while being dragged backwards by her wrists, but she is not going to just lie down and take it. She plants her feet and heaves for all she's worth. It works this time. The horses are yanked down by their saddles, and the riders shout in alarm as they're unceremoniously introduced to the ground. Lucy would rush them, take advantage of their distraction, but if she so much as moves her pinky toe right now, she's going to pass out. The guards recover quickly, rolling out from under the horses and scrambling to their feet. They turn to find her standing and glaring promises of vengeance, and she smells urine as one of them pisses his pants. The other two aren't scared of her though. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way," the biggest one warns. Lucy spits on the ground between them, the surest sign of disrespect she can muster. They charge her. It doesn't go well for any of them. Lucy fights in a blur. She's dizzy and weak, and she thinks she might have a head wound, thinks she might be able to feel air against exposed skull. She has to use the cuffs like a battering ram since her wrists are tied together, and she manages to drive the plate of sea stone into the first guy's temple. One of them gets a thick arm around her throat and starts squeezing on her larynx to make her pass out, but she digs her teeth into the flesh of his bicep. Blood wells between her jaws, and there's a tearing sound as the big guy plants a meaty fist in her face, and she doesn't let go. Lucy manages to spit out the disgusting lump of skin and fat and blood she tore off before she passes out. The third time she wakes up, she's gagged and has a muzzle on. It's made of metal and designed to be uncomfortable. It hurts when she so much as turns her head or twitches, and she's clearly not meant to speak. It's locked so tight under her jaw that she can't even clench her teeth without the edges digging into her skin. At least it's not more sea stone. The icy sting has grown into a burn. Something drives hard into her ribs. She coughs, hacking disgusting fluid, and then grunts when the motion forces the muzzle into her face and the rag in her mouth soaks up the blood. "On your feet," a voice growls. Abruptly she realizes she's not being dragged anymore. Lucy struggles up to face the threat, feeling every ache in her body and hating the slow sap of strength from the sea stone. Getting kicked in the ribs by some dude should not have the potential to fracture them. Not for her. Shit, normally she'd barely feel it. She can't stand on her own. She makes it to her knees. Strainy guard reaches down to grab her by the front of the borrowed kimono and lifts her off her feet. Lucy glares at the guard. She doesn't recognize him, and they're inside somewhere now, unless she's going selectively blind. "Lower your eyes, bitch," the man growls. Lucy just narrows her gaze. She expects the guard to hit her or otherwise retaliate. Instead he grins, cruel and full of malice. Lucy simmers, unapologetic. "Little girl," the guard drawls. "Do you know where you are?" Lucy doesn't respond, doesn't back down, doesn't stop glaring. The guard smiles, and looks her up and down in a slow leer. Lucy snarls at him, ignoring the pinch of the muzzle and the way she almost swallows her own tongue on the gag. "This is Udon Prison," the guard explains. "You'll stay here until you're useful to Kaido-sama. Until you bow to him. You will not be protected. And the effects of those cuffs? They haven't even started yet." The cruelty in his smile grows. "The monsters in here haven't seen a woman in years. I wonder how you'll fare when you're thrown in with the worst of them." Lucy doesn't let her expression break, doesn't move, doesn't react. The guard's smile drops to the sneer he means it to be, and his hand shifts up to squeeze around her throat, hard enough to break a normal woman's neck. Lucy can't move, can't fight, can't feel her limbs for the most part beyond the pain and weakness and exhaustion. So she just glares, her expression unbroken despite the lack of oxygen. The guard slams her hard into a metal door. Her skull cracks against it, and white-hot pain lances through her so profound she goes limp. She doesn't pass out though, and she doesn't stop glaring. The guard spits on her. "Let's see if you survive the night. Enjoy your new cellmate." And then he shoves her through the door, cackles when she lands in a heap against the stone, and slams the door shut behind him. It's dark. There's no light in, wherever this place is. But she can hear breathing, she's not alone. Lucy reaches for Haki, trying to see better in the dark, and has to stop when there's a woozy, dangerous pressure in her head. Weakness. This is weakness. The other person in the cell smells like blood and motor oil. When her eyes adjust enough to see, she turns to find him staring at her, glaring. She blinks in shock. She knows him. Jaggy? Straw Hat, Jaggy growls. His gaze is narrow and mean. Lucy remembers thinking he'd die young in Sabaody, and she nearly chokes when she hiccups a laugh at her own expense. They ended up in the same prison cell, and her lungs repay her by bleeding internally. Jaggy glares, thinking she's laughing at him, and kicks at her. She can see the slowness of it, the effort it costs him. It only hurts because every cell in her body fucking hurts. Lucy kicks back at him just to make a point. She aims for his hip, misses, and promises she'll get him back properly later. Shit. The cuffs are really starting to burn. Lucy is curled on her side, still in the heap she landed in when the guard shoved her in here. She reaches for the burn of her pride, and tries to push herself against the wall at least. She gets an elbow under her, she tries to use it to sit up. The thing in her back rips again, tendons flayed and cut open. She registers collapsing back to the floor, but she's out before she can worry about choking on the gag. It doesn't take her long to wake, and then the night passes slowly. She does not sleep, or allow herself to release her grip on her consciousness. She will not be vulnerable if she can help it. Instead, Lucy lays there rendered completely unable to move between her exhaustion, her injuries, and the cuffs. They hurt. The stinging in her wrists spreads, up her arms to her shoulders, her chest, her legs. And then slowly the stinging becomes an icy burn, crawling through her bloodstream from the cuffs outward. Cell by cell the numbness recedes, until she's left with nothing so much as the sensation of melting, her body slowly disintegrating under the anathema qualities of the cuffs. Her wrists are flayed raw. She can't see them or feel the pain of the injury, but her hands are on her stomach and she can feel the cuts reopen every time she breathes. The gag is soaked in her blood and saliva and it tastes bitter and rotten. The hours pass. On the other side of the cell, Jaggy pants and wages his own war against the cuffs. It breeds a strange sort of camaraderie despite the silence and their mutual resentment and dislike. She wonders in a detached sort of way if it's possible to die from sea stone exposure. She's never thought to ask. The cell is disgusting, even by Lucy's low standards for hygiene. It smells like piss and mildew and she suspects Jaggy has been here for some time, if the eye-watering body odor is anything to go by. In a way it's helpful that the conditions are so heinous. It gives her something to distract from the pain, the strangeness of having her body turned inside out, bit by bit. Almost against her will, Lucy thinks of Ace. She saw his cage, saw the blood on the floor, the way they bound him with his hands behind his back. She wonders if the last week of his life was spent like this, with the pain rising slowly to excruciating and showing no signs of backing down. The tender spot in her heart aches a little differently than the rest of her, thinking of it. The minutes crawl by. Lucy focuses on breathing, on staying conscious. It's tempting, so tempting, to try and call forth her Haki. If she could just reach it, she could check on her crew, see who's still alive. She doesn't reach for Haki. She's holding onto lucidity by hairs. Haki would wipe her out immediately. They had to be alive. Sanji was with them. She has to believe they're alive. At some point she realizes her whole body is locked up in a tense contraction of every muscle as she shudders and shivers against the pain. The tension in her body isn't helping anything, but she can't convince herself to relax. The melting sensation is gone. Now it feels like her every nerve is being slowly exposed by the world's sharpest knife. Lucy endures. She will not break. Change comes in the early hours of the morning. Lucy can see a tiny sliver of pre-dawn light beneath the cell door. Faint as a whisper, but it might as well be a beacon given how dark their cage is. Across the cell, Jaggy's hand twitches. It's the first she's seen him move since she was thrown in here. Her eyes narrow, focusing on his hand. He reaches up, presses against the stone floor of their cage, and centimeter by centimeter, he pushes to his knees. The effort exhausts him. He wheezes his breaths now, sucking in air. Lucy watches. Finally, Jaggy looks at her. his shoulders still heaving. There's something like challenge or victory in his eyes, and Lucy snarls at him, ignoring the muzzle as blood drips down her cheeks and the gag digs into her gums. Whatever he would have said next is lost. Abruptly, his body seems to stop supporting his weight and he slumps against the wall, exhausted. She's not sure if he passed out or if he's just resting, but his eyes are closed. The wheeze in his breath remains. Lucy grits her teeth and wills herself the strength to move her limbs. Slowly, cell by cell, the pain recedes. In its wake she's left with an achy, marrow-deep weakness, a persistent chill, and a tremor in her muscles. And now that she can feel them, every injury she received from Kaido throbs in time with her heartbeat. The light beneath the door is white and orange by the time Lucy manages to roll onto her stomach, but she does it. Across the cell, Jaggy watches her, still panting. Lucy folds herself up onto her feet, refusing to rest on her knees. She stands shakily, and fresh blood flows from the cut on her head, from whatever's broken in her back. Her knees wobble and barely support her weight, but she stands on her own 2 feet and glares at Jaggy in victory. He bares his teeth, furious, and Lucy grabs hold of the wall of the cell like her life depends on it, but she doesn't fall back down, not when her arms seize beneath broken ribs, not when the metal rips into the pads of her fingers and old wounds from Drum Island make themselves known. The next race is who can take the first step, who can make it to the door, who will be able to get to the quarry the fastest to receive food. They will compete, and Lucy will win and become stronger, because she's going to be the Pirate King. Kaido made a mistake, leaving her alive. She's going to make him pay for it. Zoro stops hearing Shisui somewhere in Kibi, north of the capital. Retracing his steps does nothing but make him confused about where he started, and no matter how many times he crosses the damn river he can't pick up a whisper of the katana. It's frustrating. He isn't sure where he's supposed to look if the katana isn't even calling to him anymore, and the katana should be calling to him. He wonders again if it's Enma's fault. He doubts it, but he can't think of many other explanations either. With nothing better to do, Zoro starts following Kitetsu to Udon Prison. If Lucy hasn't broken out already he can lend an assist. It's been 2 days and he has yet to sense her presence. It's starting to worry him. Then he meets Tonoyasu in a gambler's den. Zoro destroys the hall when they try to cheat him. No matter that Zoro was kinda sorta cheating first. And he looks at the old man in the rain to see if he plans to object to his actions. What he finds is bright, cunning eyes set above a too wide smile. The old man looks him up and down and says, "You look like someone I used to know." Zoro raises an eyebrow. "Oh?" The smile looks more genuine then. "Another lifetime, really. But what does a fool like me know, Then Tonoyasu decides to follow him around, and that nixes his plans to rescue Lucy. It seems unfair to lead the guy into a prison break, and the man is good at talking his way around Zoro's protests. It's easier to just let him be. Zoro figures he'll get bored eventually, and he can always ditch him if he needs to. Tonoyasu starts telling him things about Wano as they walk. Small things like that used to be a bathhouse, or once this street was lined in magnolia blossoms. He speaks of bigger things too, like that village was 500 strong when gesturing to a cluster of 3 dilapidated houses, and once these plains were rice paddies, when gesturing to empty, dry, wastes. The old man seems to hold a memory for every inch of Wano, each one filled with wistful respect. His most detailed stories are of the Shimotsuki. The old man describes them as a clan of men and women who were known to start as many rebellions as they ended, all of them hardy and restless. Powerful but not particularly political, as the clans of Wano went. They were loyal to a strange code of honor and mores that no one outside the clan or Ringo really understood, and were often the allies of the Kazuki. They seemingly had a hand in every happening on Wano for centuries. Tonoyasu must have known some of them personally. He speaks of them too familiarly, and he acts like Zoro should know the stories as well. The swordsman figures some of them are folk tales on Wano, the kind of thing parents tell children at bedtime or around a hearth. Some of them sound like ballads or poems. Zoro plays along, does his best not to let his ignorance show. It's odd though. Tonoyasu can speak of the saddest things with a smile on his face. Zoro doesn't get people the way Lucy does, but this still feels weird. Tonoyasu leads him back toward the flower capital, of all places. He introduces Zoro to Ebisu Town. Zoro wonders what Lucy would think of Ebisu Town. There's a sense of a tragedy about all of these people as they laugh about starvation, frustration too, misery. And they all wear smiles even as they cry. He doesn't understand. He doesn't want to accept the water they offer, because he's been around Wano long enough to know that the few ounces in the cup might be more precious than gold. But Tonoyasu nods to him and Zoro takes his word for it that Zoro's drink won't make another want for thirst. That night, Zoro stares out into the wastes. He's managed to deter the residents of Ebisu from feeding him, but he thinks it's probably safest to sleep outside lest someone hear his stomach growl. Enma sits across his lap, hungry and violent in its eagerness. Zoro huffs at the blade and considers. Why cry when you can laugh, was apparently the philosophy of the town. It doesn't exactly apply to his situation, and he isn't too sure about it in the first place, but he chooses to interpret it as a prompting to take advantage of what's available to him. Zoro walks out into the wastes, needing to get away from town for this. When he feels like he's a safe enough distance away, he slots Enma at his right hip with the other blades and withdraws slowly. Enma screams for joy when he holds the blade out for the first time, a deranged wail that drowns out even Zoro's heartbeat. The blade sings of violence and bloodshed and domination, of destruction and power and lust. Enma will consume everything for Zoro, if only Zoro will use it. Despite the strangeness of it, Zoro's breath catches when he sees the blade. The hamon is a soft green, the pattern smooth like a wave. The air seems to shiver around its edge, so sharp even reality itself warps away from the katana. Zoro aligns himself in a ready stance, his right hand on the blade. It feels almost weightless in his palm, the balance perfect. He can feel Enma begging him to test it out, can feel the eagerness like hair standing up on his arms. Zoro performs a simple thrust, the first every swordsman learns. The earth cleaves in two before him, a gash in the waist so deep he cannot see its bottom or its end. The wind pressure sucks his clothes forward into the destruction as Enma rends the sky in two. And in his hand, the weightless katana consumes. Zoro gasps, surprised at the sudden drain on his haki, the way it seeps from him unwillingly, and Enma sucks more than haki, more than Zoro's very life. It takes muscle and blood and bone from his arm before he knows enough to clench his fist and stop it. Give it back, he growls, his teeth grit. His arm is black with haki and thin as one of the starving villagers of Ebisu. And still, Enma tries to take more. Enma wants all of Zoro, his very soul, and the want is like acid in the air. Enma wants so Enma takes and Zoro will do nothing about it because it is mine, he thinks. Zoro snarls and pulls. Enma cannot withstand the command, and strength returns to Zoro's arm, his haki as well. Zoro allows himself exactly 2 pants before pulling himself together and looking at the katana. You are a little parasite, aren't you? He asks rhetorically. Enma is no longer weightless in his palm. The balance is still perfect, but there's a hostility in the blade that wasn't there before. Enma is quieter now than it has been since Lucy threw it at him, and pricklier too. It reminds him of a petulant toddler, with the malevolent wrath of a god. Zoro looks up at the gash in the earth. It's smoking and stretches into the dark of the wastes much farther than Zoro can see. It is as wide as a grown man is tall. Zoro holds Enma up, and comes to a decision. I haven't given up on Shisui, he warns the blade. But we can work together until we find it. Zoro's never really been sure what the katana understand or don't. He knows they're aware, in some way, of him and people in his life. The way his blades attach themselves to Lucy is evidence enough of that. They bend to his emotional state mostly, react to it. But he's never taken up a blade without a contract or an oath, and he won't start off with bad manners. Enma seems to shudder in his mind, singing songs of destruction and death. Indiscriminate this time, it could be Zoro who dies, and Enma who feasts on him. I'll master you, he promises, because like hell he's letting 2 of his katana fantasize about his inevitable death. It'll make me stronger. And Zoro walks back towards Ebisu. Enma returned to its scabbard and spitting volcanic fury at him as low and powerful and damning. In a way, it's too bad that he's so attached to Shisui. He thinks he and Enma would be a good match. The first day in prison is difficult. Lucy struggles to walk at first, and struggles to work when she manages that. The thing that keeps her moving is her rage at Kaido, and her refusal to let Jaggy beat her to recovery. She needs food and water. The cuffs prevent her from working well, and the muzzle prevents her from eating or drinking. She needs to sleep, but her paranoia and imposed weakness make it impossible. Her injuries are healing slowly without the aid of her fruit. Considering it all, it's not that surprising when she passes out midday, deep in the quarry where almost no one goes. Her head wound has been bothering her all day, more painful than any of her other injuries and more distracting, and when she goes to lift a block of stone, pain lances through her skull so deep she feels her stomach heave. Hears Jaggy laugh in victory when he wins their race to lift a block, and then her vision whites out and she's gone. When awareness returns, she's on her back. She blinks spots away to see a guard kneeling over her, leering and smiling and undoing the laces of her bust strap. Adrenaline jolts through her, her stomach clenching in her belly with the force of her alarm. The guard sees her wake and reaches for her wrists to pin her down, but Lucy is strong and Lucy has her second wind and she gnashes her teeth despite the muzzle biting into the soft flesh of her cheeks and drives her heel into his stomach with as much strength as she can. The guard grunts and shouts and punches Lucy in the eye, but she barely feels it with the instinctive terror and fury running through her, and she levers herself upright, rising shakily to her feet just in time to dodge another clumsy swing from the guard. He's overbalanced and stretched too far on her left, between Lucy and the block of stone. She swings the chain from her cuffs around his neck once to yank him further off balance and again to pull the loop tight. She plants her heel between his shoulder blades and pulls. The guard struggles and thrashes and Lucy's muscles burn with exhaustion as she strangles him. She holds on, vision blurry with adrenaline, and eventually the asshole quiets. Lucy has no idea if he's dead or not, and she doesn't care either way. Slowly, she unravels her chains from the guy's neck so she can leave. She pants, her peripheral vision turning black and her head pounding. Fuck. She needs to rest, and regain enough strength to break the muzzle off so she can eat. She needs to be stronger, so things like this don't happen. Whatever she's built before, it's not enough if things like that can. It should not have been that close. Lucy tightens the laces of the bust strap Hancock gave her. The world won't let her forget, right? She looks up at the block of stone she meant to carry before. Takes a deep breath. Now or never, she can't lose to Jaggy. She thinks her back might break and she might pass out beneath the stone again, but she lifts it, hefts the stone up on her shoulders with shaking muscles and hesitant steps. She's going to win. She's going to tear this place down and eat Zoe's weight in millet dumplings. She's going to kill Kaido and party and sleep. She looks up at the entrance and sees Jaggy standing there. The expression on his face is inscrutable, and Lucy growls involuntarily. She wonders what he saw, if it matters. What are you looking at? She thinks but can't speak. She just glares. Jaggy's expression doesn't change. He just steps aside to let her through, and Lucy passes him. It takes her almost 30 minutes to struggle the few hundred yards to the drop zone. It's weak. Not enough. Lucy needs to be better. She should never be in a position like that again, where a stupid guard could take advantage of her. She doesn't. She promised Maki no retribution. When she struggles back to the quarry for her next haul, the guard's body isn't there. A smear of blood stains the stone, and when she next sees Jaggy she notes the red covering his boots, his leg. He doesn't look at her until she beats him on their next lap, and then a glint of challenge is in his eyes. Lucy doesn't know what happened. She doesn't care. If Jaggy did something, it wasn't for Lucy. She took care of it all herself. Still, she dozes in the cell that night, a light, fitful sleep, but the restlessness comes from the hard floor and her crew's absence and the knowledge that anyone could unlock their cell at any time. Jaggy doesn't make her sleepless. Not like that. Tonoyasu is clingy even when Zoro isn't going anywhere, it turns out. He's also apparently as much of an insomniac as Zoro's turned into in the last few weeks. He can usually fall asleep, at least. Tonight he can't. He's not sure if it's Enma's complaining or his frustration over Shisui or the way he can't sense any of his crew. Whatever the reason, the Hour of the Ox finds him sitting on the front porch of a kindly woman's home, with Tonoyasu cackling quietly at his side. The people of Ebisu are great, right? Very stoic. Tonoyasu praises, rocking back and forth on the step. Zoro nods and hums. In their own way, he agrees. It takes grit to smile at their slow deaths. They're my family, Tonoyasu says warmly. I've learned to expand the definition since Orochi came. Again, Zoro finds himself relating. Nakama means you never have to say goodbye or be alone, or whatever. I'm sure many did the same. They'd have to, for survival in this country. Yes. We have. The old man answers softly. Of course, that doesn't mean we forget the ones we've lost. Zoro thinks of Kuina and nods. A hand on Wato's hilt. He doesn't know what it is to lose blood. He doesn't know what it's like to have that in the first place. Still, he's lost before too. The Shimotsuki were good about that. Tonoyasu chatters. Always pretending they didn't miss their loved ones. Acting like their sword graves were enough to remember them by. The old man sounds fond. They'd fight with tears on their cheeks and still deny their feelings. Good people. They all died? Zoro asks. Kinemon said as much, but Tonoyasu seems to want to talk about them. And he'd know what actually happened. The old man just shrugs. Who knows? But they never submitted to Kaido. They fought without hope, just like the people of Ebisu. Zoro thinks about that, fighting without hope. He's only done it once, and the only thing on the line was his own life and his own dream. The country wasn't resting on his shoulders then. It would have been fun to fight them, Zoro tells Tonoyasu. It's the best compliment he's got. The old man laughs heartily and slaps Zoro on the shoulder. Oh, they'd have liked that. A little ruffian like you challenging them. He slaps Zoro on the shoulder. I bet you'd have run around challenging every dojo in Ringo, huh? Zoro decides not to mention that's exactly how he ended up at Ishin Dojo, probably. You'd have fit right in, then, Tonoyasu says. There's a warmth in his voice that Zoro doesn't really understand, but it feels good anyway. As long as they had good sake, Zoro decides aloud. Tonoyasu laughs as the hour bell chimes from the capital. And Zoro leans on his palms with a small smile on his face. There's something about Wano, the people here. It reminds him of Shimotsuki village and especially the dojo. Tonoyasu reminds him of Sensei. Something about their bearing rings similarly despite their disparate personalities. Strange that he would feel such kinship to a land this isolated. Strange that it doesn't freak him out more. He wonders what Lucy thinks of Wano, if it calls to her the same way. She probably isn't getting the best impression from inside Udon. Zoro almost asks Tonoyasu about it. Almost asks him what he knows of the place. He's close enough that it makes sense to break in, and he wants to explore this country with her. It's weird, a strange urge he doesn't understand, but he wants to see this place through her eyes. He bites his tongue. There's no good reason for a random Ronin to be asking about the prison labor camp. Yasu would be suspicious, especially if he heard of a breakout soon after. You should sleep, Zoro grunts at him. It'll be dawn soon, and an old man like him needs rest more than Zoro. Tonoyasu just laughs and falls over right where he sits, napping against the porch. A good lad like you will keep watch over the town. Zoro shrugs, and doesn't acknowledge that he's absolutely right. Zoro simply sits in the cool night air, and listens to the cicadas chirp. Jaggy is easy to piss off, and easier to compete with. As the effects of the sea stone subside and become almost tolerable, as the wounds from her fight heal, Lucy finds herself snapping at him more and more. It's a little funny how irritated he gets at her when she can't even talk to him properly, but it's good nonetheless. It lets her take her anger out on someone else instead of fuming at Kaido in silence. She has a feeling Jaggy's using her for the same reason. At the end of the second day, she's recovered enough strength that she breaks the muzzle off her own head and spits out the gag. It's soaked through with her blood and there's congealed rot in weird places all over her mouth, but she's never been so relieved. Jaggy raises an eyebrow at her when he sees it, and Lucy wipes the blood from her face and grins, mean and temperamental. Finally, I can tell you how stupid you look, is the first thing she says. Jaggy lunges for her with a right cross and Lucy returns the favor, far past the stage where they could barely scrape themselves off the floors of the cell. The sensation of weakness in her limbs is still there, a persistent, aching sense of wrongness about her body, but she finds she can work through it, push for more of herself as bones and tissue knit back together. Haki is still frustratingly elusive. She's managed intentional glimpses of observation Haki, and she hit Jaggy in the face with a burst of armament once, but it's like the sense is dampened, like her ability to extend her will into that extra space is blocked off. Jaggy is having similar problems, even if he doesn't say as much. Lucy doesn't think it's the cuffs so much as the way it cuts her off from herself. The cuffs drain energy, make her feel depleted and sore and lethargic. Hockey is all about will and intent and drive, and though she has them in spades, her body is still recovering physically and the persistent weakness makes her bones shake and her muscles tight. Using hockey burns through the meager remains of her energy reserves. Still, she keeps trying. On the third day, a voice hits her so hard and clear that it blinds her for a moment, leaves her scrambling to catch up with Jaggy's workload. She loses her grip on her hockey, but she still finds herself smiling, wide and free, because thank goodness Robin is all right. Later that evening she hears the faintest whisper of Nami's presence, and she curls up in the corner of the cell with her hand over her mouth to cry in relief. If Nami made it, then so did Chopper and Brook and Sanji and Torao's crew. Maybe even Tama made it. Every day, Lucy grows stronger. She can feel it in the way her body labors less and less under the physical tasks of the quarry, the way the weakness feels less and less burdensome. At night, she and Jaggy glare at each other from across their cell when she's not annoying the crap out of him for the sake of it. It's entertaining and it's fun to pick at him. She's still not sure what sort of person Jaggy is. Not a particularly good one, but she's never really cared much about that one way or another. He seems different from the guy she met in Sabaody who killed people for fun, but she's not sure exactly how different. Still violent and mean for sure, still apathetic to others, but the arrogance is missing. Maybe 2 arms were required for arrogance. She doesn't know what he did to the guard, but the fact that he did something makes her think he's not the worst. There are definitely worse people to be locked in a cage with. Hey, Jaggy, your crew gonna rescue you? Jaggy scowls at her. I told you not to call me that. Why would I listen to you? She scoffs. It's hot in the cell, and she's sweating through her kimono. Enough that she ends up striping off the top half and running around in her bust strap a lot. After the guard, a guy only tried to cop a feel once and she broke his arm and ripped a testicle off for it. No one's bothered her since. What about your crew, Straw Hat? They gonna come save their poor little captain? Lucy rolls her eyes. Nah. They have better things to do. They'll expect me to handle it myself. She shrugs. Zoro will come get me if I take too long. Jaggy raises an eyebrow. Roronoa? Your first mate? Lucy hums. Yep. He's the best. She blinks, remembering Sabaody before everything went to shit. Hey, doesn't your guy also have swords? They should fight next time we meet. Zoro's gonna kick his ass. Jaggy scoffs. Sides. And, please. Roronoa's got nothing on Killer. Dude runs around with a sword in his mouth. He's definitely compensating for something. Lucy kicks at Jaggy, pleased when her heel catches his knee. He has 3 swords because it's cool. And he doesn't lose. Jaggy throws a rock at her head, and Lucy sways out of the way with ease. What's Masky's deal then? What's he got that makes you so sure he wouldn't fold immediately? He would, because Zoro's awesome, but she's bored and curious and this is more interesting than staring at the ceiling. Jaggy frowns at his pile of dumplings, a dumb look on his face. Killer's hotter. Lucy sits bolt upright. You take that back. Fuck no, what kind of idiot has green hair? My idiot, and he's way hotter than Masky. How would you even know? You haven't seen his face. Lucy sniffs. Instinct, you have shit instincts. My boyfriend's way hotter than yours. My boyfriend could kick your boyfriend's ass. I'll kick your ass if you say that again. You wanna go Straw Hat? Try me, bitch. It's not easy to wrestle in a dank cage, but they do manage to bloody each other up enough that they're both panting at the end, and the guards take bets on them to inconclusive results. They don't so much stop fighting as slowly get bored with it, as most of their tussles have gone over the last few days. So annoying. She tires too easily with the damn cuffs on. Otherwise she'd totally rub Jaggy's nose in the dirt until he cried uncle. It's only way later in the evening, after she and Jaggy have another fight involving who has the better uppercut, Lucy, obviously, and she proves that by demonstration. That Lucy blinks up at the ceiling and remembers what their conversation was even about. Wait, so you and Masky are dating? She asks. It's the middle of the night and he's half asleep already, but she doesn't give shit. Fuck you, Jaggy grunts. Fuck you. She returns automatically. Then she hums. I've never met another captain who was dating their first mate before. That's because it's none of your goddamn business, Jaggy growls. Yeah, but it's still interesting. Hey, did you have people telling you it was a bad idea too? Jaggy actually hesitates in his response for a moment, which is how Lucy knows she's got his interest. Why? I did, she explains bluntly, it was dumb advice. Idiots, Jaggy agrees, but his voice is softer than she thinks she's ever heard it before. Sappy. My boyfriend's still hotter than yours. Why you little. 4 days after Lucy was imprisoned, Zoro wakes up in Ebisu town hearing the Song of the Void and races towards it with barely a by your leave to Tonoyasu. He would feel bad about that if his katana wasn't on the line. He's not taking any chances or slowing down this time. He runs from Ebisu to Ringo and he doesn't stop until he's standing at a moon bridge, Shisui's song growing louder up ahead. He waits. A moment later, someone comes. The man is taller than Zoro twice over and has swirling tattoos across his forehead. He carries a spear and onin of other weapons across his back. He sounds strange when Zoro listens with his haki. Not quite there, like mist. Shisui's there, strapped to this guy's right shoulder. The big guy stops at the other end of the bridge and glares. Zoro raises an eyebrow. You have my katana. I am the guardian of lost weapons, Yukimaru, the guy declares. And Shisui is a legendary blade that never belonged to you. I fought Ryuma himself for it. I won it in single combat with its previous master. Yukimaru only bares his teeth, and before that it was stolen, the perfect, completed black blade. Zoro frowns. If it was meant to be in a grave, I wouldn't be able to hear it now. Yukimaru starts, stares at Zoro, and shakes his head. So you know its history, and its importance, and still you insist on reclaiming it? Despicable. I will take the rest of your katana for your insolence. The guardian narrows his gaze to Zoro's hip, and his eyes widen. Is that? How do you have Enma? Did you steal it from another grave, you desecrator? Zoro frowns at him. My girlfriend gave it to me. And she never explained where the hell she found it. He's going to ask her about that when she gets out of prison. You will give me Enma, the guardian growls, and you will not even think of touching Shisui again. I'm not giving you shit, Zoro scoffs, and his eyes narrow on the weapons the guardian carries. Kinemon did say they need weapons. You're going to give me my katana, and tell me how you managed to steal Shisui in the first place. Zoro draws only 2 blades despite Enma's bitching. Seriously, he thought Kitetsu was moody. The guardian is fast, and not bad, but he's not skilled enough that Zoro has much trouble, even with just 2 katana. He's hard to pin down, but not quick enough that Zoro has any difficulty deflecting or blocking his strikes. Then he starts ranting about black blades and forging and Zoro thinks about hockey and armament and... A woman screams, interrupting the fight. She's got a kid with her, and between the hysterical child and the woman's blood, he acts the way anyone would. Hitakari Kamazo, the woman pants, please, save us from him. Zoro steps between the woman and her would-be killer. Got any sake? Sure. Kamazo isn't bad. Actually he's good enough that Zoro's tempted to whip out Enma. Terrible idea. He does it anyway. The guardian howls at him when he draws Enma, angry and swearing about grave desecration, and the woman takes a keen interest in the katana when she hears its name, but Zoro blocks it out, focuses only on trying to achieve balance between the 3 blades. Enma burns like acid in his right hand, and competes against Wado for Zoro's attention and focus and with Kitetsu for most annoying influence on the soul ever, because with Enma in hand he wants to cleave the world in 2, wants to swallow everything around him, wants to drink the blood of his enemies. Enma and Kitetsu are individually volatile, together they're a lot. But Zoro is going to be the world's greatest, and Kamazo is unhinged. He just needs a clean shot. In the next bot, Zoro weaves into Kamazo's space, ducks under his guard, and snaps one of his dumb scythes between his heel and the ground. He fends off the other one using Wado, and ducks back out of range. He settles into an onigiri and lets Enma consume and Kitetsu taste blood and holds onto his sanity by cleaving hard to Wado's icy pride. Kamazo falls face first into the snow. Enma drains his haki and his muscle and strips calcium from his bones, but Zoro is expecting it this time, and stops the drain at his elbow instead of his shoulder. He grins, vicious and pleased, and yanks back what was stolen. Enma is returned to its scabbard, hungry. Zoro turns to the woman and kid. The woman is staring at him, eyes hard as glass and not nearly as friendly as he expected toward a guy who just saved her life. "Where?" she asks, tone icy as Ringo's wind. "Did you get that katana?" Zoro frowns and looks to the sky for patience. Lucy has a lot of explaining to do. He decides. The ice in the woman's expression does not melt, but confusion makes her softer. And then the Guardian makes his obnoxious self known, and Zoro makes a choice. Chopper is going to be mad at him for this. Zoro turns, into the blade brandished at his back, so he catches it through the front of his shoulder instead of his spine. The Guardian blinks at him in surprise, and then in shock when he is unable to withdraw his spear. Kitetsu's edge weeps with blood, and he holds it out to Gyukimaru's neck. Zoro grins into the ecstasy of pain, and presses himself further against the blade. He reaches for Shisui, his fingertips inches away from rosewood and black lacquer. The Guardian growls, releases his spear, and disappears in a puff of smoke. Because of course the only weapon he doesn't care about is his own. "Fucking coward," he groans, and removes the spear from his shoulder. Shit, was he supposed to do that? Chopper was always yelling at him about stuff like this, but he can never remember if he's supposed to leave it in or take it out. "Swordsman-san." The woman calls, and Zoro has a sinking feeling that he wasn't supposed to remove the blade when blood spurts from the wound in a frankly alarming volume and his vision starts to go black around the edges. "I still want sake," he tells her as she runs up, and her eyes are very wide when she takes in the damage. "And don't let anyone steal my fucking katanas," he complains, just in case the coward comes back. He has just enough wherewithal to flick the blood off of Wado and Kitetsu before sliding them into their scabbards. Then his vision goes black and the last thing he remembers is small hands pressing on the wound in his shoulder before he passes out. When he wakes up, Zoro's surprisingly not feeling like complete shit. He also can't hear Shisui again, which is infuriating. Actually, shit, where are? He sits up, a bit too fast for having an oversized meat cleaver stuck in his shoulder recently, and blinks in surprise at the little girl with pink hair and an unsettling smile staring up at him from the end of his cot. He says intelligently, "Katana." "Over here, Swordsman-san," another voice calls, and he finds the teal-haired woman there. She points to the corner behind him, where Kitetsu and Wado lean. Zoro turns back to the woman slowly. She holds his stare with her chin raised, a challenge in her eyes. "Lady," he starts, "why the fuck would you hide my katana in a closet?" The woman blinks in surprise, enough that she almost drops the soup in her hand. Zoro reaches out to stabilize it and winces when it twinges at his wound. "Why do you suspect it is in the closet?" she asks lightly, her voice strained. Zoro rolls his eye. "Stupid katana hasn't shut up since I first saw it," Zoro grumbles. Enma screams vitriol and punishment in the back of his head. The woman sits primly, an odd expression on her face. "I know that blade," she says at length, lips pursed. "Could you explain how it came into your possession?" Zoro narrows his gaze and studies her. He's never been very good at reading people, but she seems honest enough. "Well, maybe this stranger has some answers. Wouldn't be the first time. My master gave it to me," he explains slowly, trying to find the appropriate Wano analog that won't immediately give them all away. "I dunno where she got it. Not like she knows how to use a blade anyway." He shrugs. "I'm still looking for the katana that Guardian stole, but I'm using Enma in the meantime." The woman stares at him for a long time, her expression pensive and serious. Zoro eats his soup and studies her in turn. She seems wealthy, like the type used to luxury. She's pretty the way Robin is pretty, elegant, with a straight nose and full lips and uncalloused hands that speak of privilege. It seems a little odd that she would be so comfortable in accommodations like this drafty cabin, but she clearly knows her way around making an inhospitable place feel livable. Finally, she raises her chin and speaks. "Enma belongs to someone I know." Zoro pauses with the spoon halfway to his lips. "Enma is a quality blade, and difficult to handle. Whoever she's talking about is probably someone of importance, and a great samurai if they could use it." "Enma is a cursed blade," the woman continues, her expression stern and frozen. "You seem like you might be able to handle it though. As thanks for your protection, I will not object to your use of it until you reclaim your previous katana." Besides, she smiles, it seems like it fell into your hands on a whim and good luck. Well, if that isn't the best possible way to describe his girlfriend's antics, he doesn't know what is. I wasn't gonna just give it to you, he says. He would need to confirm where Lucy even found the damn thing first, and probably not even then, since the katana is so volatile, but thanks, I guess. The woman looks somewhere between amused and affronted for a moment. Then her expression shifts to curiosity. Are you a Shimotsuki? Zoro frowns at her over the soup. Huh? The woman leans in close to him, searching his face. Zoro scowls at her. I thought you might be when I saw you. There are rumors that the vengeance of Curry is a Shimotsuki ghost. A Mononoke. Fanciful. But I figured the Shimotsuki part might be correct. I hoped it was, she says, just a little sadly. Besides, Enma connected with you. The woman explains, eyes bright. It was forged by a Shimotsuki craftsman, and led to the family that owns it. You're talented enough to suit the Shimotsuki reputation, too. Zoro shoves the bowl in her hands, pushing her back out of his space. I'm not one of them. The woman hums, looking again at his eye, and shakes her head. The little girl crawls into the woman's lap, and the woman's eyes turn cunning. You're an outsider, yes? Local swordsmen of your caliber would have recognized Enma. And she doesn't wait for him to confirm or deny, just ladles him another bowl of soup. One have a story in exchange for yours. And she tells him, you're Momo's sister? He blurts, and then immediately wants to punch himself in the face. He doesn't know anything about this girl. She could be lying, or even if she isn't, she could be a traitor. Hiyori smiles, a little bit proud, as close to a smirk as her primness will allow. Yes. And you know my brother? Yep. Law would rightfully murder him. Kinnaman would help. She looks down at the little girl in her arms. And her smile grows a little more genuine. I want to thank you properly for saving our lives. Otoko and I upset the shogun, and we were forced to flee the capital. She leans forward over the kid to grasp his hand between hers. It's warm, and her expression is full of sincerity and gratitude. Thank you, swordsman-san. Zoro shrugs and pulls his hand away. He leans over to grab the bottle of sake. You kept up your end of the deal, he points out, then frowns at the window. He needs to go back and look for the guardian guy. Shisui was right in front of him and he still doesn't have it back yet. Well, he drawls, thanks for the food, and he stands, fully intending to go liberate Enma and collect his other two katana. Hiyori stands with him and yanks hard on his arm, his injured arm. Oi, he protests, because that hurt, damn it, let go. You are still injured, Hiyori exclaims sternly. Her eyes are firm and unwavering and remind him a little of Lucy at her most stubborn. Please, at least rest here for the night. It will be dark out soon. Shit, how long was he out? Don't touch me, Zoro tells her, and yanks his arm away. Hiyori only frowns and holds his gaze. Zoro studies her again. He doesn't really see a family resemblance between her and Momo, but he does believe her, somehow. In Momo's sister or not, he can't just leave her out here alone with Orochi's men after her. He should escort her back to the rendezvous point or something. This is getting complicated again. Maybe I should just go break Lucy out of jail, he mutters to himself. He scrubs a hand through his hair. Lucy, Hiyori says flatly, and then her eyes widen. The one who gave you Enma? My captain, he confirms, she's in Udon prison. Hiyori raises a delicately carved eyebrow. Then she lost to Kaido, she says lowly, and her eyes widen. Not Lucy Nojo, the woman everyone is blaming for the disaster in Curry. Zoro snorts. Lucy doesn't lose. She's temporarily waylaid at the worst. Hiyori does not seem convinced by his faith. Zoro sighs. He just persuaded himself not to break her out of prison. Lucy will handle it on her own, he's sure of it. And he's not getting any sense that she needs him. He glances outside. Ringo's sky is still steely gray, angry and snowy. The wind has picked up since he fought earlier, and as Hiyori said, it'll be dark soon. Well, he can decide what to do in the morning. He has 3 katana, which he is sleeping with. No asshole guardian is going to steal from him again. And some food and sake and a safe place to sleep for the night. And whoever she is, he's not going to leave a woman and child alone to fend for themselves with the shogun after them. There's more than one assassin in Wano. So Zoro settles in and doesn't protest when Toko sits next to him to rub his arm with Usopp's toad oil. He hopes she didn't pay for that. Hiyori settles on his other side, a little too close and smelling like jasmine and myrrh. The fire is nice though and the soup is warming, and he figures it's fine to rest for the evening, at least. He's not a skilled enough tracker to find the Guardian in a snowstorm with this much of a head start anyway. What does it feel like to wield Enma? She asks. Zoro frowns at her. The question is casual, but there's too much interest in her eyes. Like a demon is crawling in YRS, and at Hiyori's shocked expression, he shrugs. It's cursed, it's not pleasant. Hiyori shares a look with the kid, and tilts her head with a question, so you do not like it? Zoro gives her the look that deserves. It's just spirited. I claim it if I didn't already have 3. Hiyori blinks at him, and then laughs softly while Toko makes impressed noises. You're very strong, swordsman-san. And straightforward, Hiyori comments. She takes his bowl when he's finished eating, and Zoro shrugs the compliment off. Strength is an expectation for him, and not something Hiyori can properly appreciate for all that she's been raised on the island of samurai. Enma, I always wondered what kind of blade it was. Zoro squints at her. Who did you say it belongs to? Hiyori only hums, stacking dishes. Zoro narrows his gaze. Do you train a lot? The kid asks, and Zoro looks down to find her grinning up at him, eyes wide. She reminds him of Tama, though this kid must be a couple years younger still. Sure, he tells her, deciding to let the question go, all the time. The little girl gasps, pestering him for details, and looks stunned when he describes his exercise and training regime. Hiyori looks a little odd as well, her eyes wide and her face flushed. Zoro changes the subject to something less focused on him. That is Usopp's toad oil, damn it. And eventually the conversation moves on. Hiyori speaks in more detail about her life for the last 20 years, and between the heartfelt sentiment she expresses and the knowledge she has of the Akazaya 9, it's hard not to believe she's really Momo's sister. It's also hard not to feel for her, even if he can't really seem to get a read on her character. Lucy would be better at figuring her out. Well, she'll have the chance to. When he meets up with Momo again he'll bring her along. It's probably the safest place for Hiyori and the kid, anyway. It's chilly in Ringo, and his shoulder is not pleased about it. He lays down a few hours after sunset. After retrieving his katana from the closet, what the hell? And settles his blades next to him on the sleep mat. He's startled when Hiyori tries to lay down practically on top of him, and he shoves her off on reflex. I said not to touch me, he snaps. She looks a little offended, and pouts. The air is cold. Which is true. The little cabin is dropping in temperature as the cooking fire dies. It will be chilly tonight. Still, he is not letting a complete stranger use him as a heater. The kid should be in the middle, he concedes, because she's a kid and he's not going to let her get hypothermia. You can have the spot next to the fire. Hiyori frowns, looking a little put out, but nods. They settle in. The house is quiet, but the kid snores. He'll feel it the instant any of his katana move. He wills himself to sleep by listening to the snowfall. It almost feels like a memory, like he's been in this cabin before. Listening to the soft blanketing of the earth beyond. The smell of fir and pine and spruce too, it reminds him of the dojo, somehow. There were trees like that planted there. The strange sense of familiarity he has with Wano, with Ringo in particular, wavers in the back of his skull. He's never been here before. And the village, the dojo. Even if the name isn't a coincidence and they're connected somehow, Zoro himself isn't a native of the village. He's an orphan, abandoned. His name means one alone. There's no reason this place should feel like a memory. Maybe it's Shisui. The katana was always heavy and aloof and solemn, but it was dependable in its indifference as it sat alongside its partners in Zoro's soul. This is the katana's homeland, Ryama's homeland. He's never heard of it, but maybe Shisui left a piece of itself in Zoro, the way Kitetsu did in Lucy? It makes as much sense as anything, if he's not just imagining the strange sense memories of Wano. He shifts his hand down to the red hilt under his arm. Kitetsu sings of blood and violence, but doesn't burn his skin or freeze, and Zoro reaches for Lucy with his haki, across the snowfields of Ringo and the empty plains of Udon, and just for a moment, in the far edges of his consciousness, He swears he can almost hear Lucy roaring with the clangor of bells. A smile quirks his lips, and he rolls over onto his good shoulder, his back to the woman and child under his care. Lucy sounds like victory, inexorable and sure. It settles something in Zoro's chest. Whatever strange connection's been formed between Zoro and this country, he knows where home is for him. His name will mean something else entirely when he's the greatest. The snow piles down, and Toko snores softly, clinging to Hiyori's kimono. Zoro lets dreams of golden bells and the endless sea carry him to sleep. On the third day, Lucy and Jaggy are moved into general population. She doesn't have Haki to keep an eye out, and she's conspicuous here, a woman, an obvious outsider, and begrudged by the guards. Most prisoners here seem decent, if downtrodden, but there are men here that raise her hackles, even after she regained some of her strength and made her point about not being touched. The guards, especially, are guilty of leering, and they clearly know something happened to their fellow. She doesn't fear anyone here, but she's not interested in taking chances. She doesn't sleep much. It's also not exactly comfortable here, with the days sweltering and the nights cold. She misses Zoro. She'd rest easy if Zoro were here. Any of her nakama really. They'd take turns keeping watch. It's a fleeting thought. She's fine, and her crew are needed elsewhere. She can take care of it herself, and something in her hates the idea of any of them setting foot here. Always, whenever a moment to think strikes, whenever she'd normally be napping or goofing off, she thinks of fighting Kaido. It wasn't enough. She threw everything she had at him, and still. She goes over every move of the fight again and again, looking for mistakes, flaws, weaknesses. She has a raid in less than 2 weeks. She needs to be ready. No second chances. The days pass. Lucy bugs Jaggy for the sake of entertainment when she isn't out competing him. She fends off the gross swamp dude, and tries to bench press the mountain of stone with only her human strength, which is looking more and more feasible every day. There's an old man at this prison. He's been here a long time, and she keeps an eye out for him. She doesn't intend to let anyone starve. Haki remains unpredictable at best, absent at worst. She spent one whole evening trying to draw on her conqueror's Haki, and couldn't even sense the vein of white-hot energy that she usually feels at the ready. Occasionally a voice slips through the impurities of the cuffs. She thinks Zoro was wandering around close to the prison because she heard him so clearly one night. But for the most part she's blind to the outside world until Raizo shows up. He confirms for her what she already knew, that her crew is okay, and informs her that Tom is alright, which is a relief on par with spitting that gag out. On the 5th day a big guy shows up. People make a fuss. A bigger guy shows up, and he. Actually, this guy smells strong. Not stronger than her, but enough to be a pain with the cuffs on. Oi, Straw Hat, do you know why we put you in a men's labor prison? Well, since the guards basically spelled it out for her, yes, she has a pretty good idea. We don't send women to this prison. In most cases, usually, we just force them into brothels and take away all their family titles, possessions, and histories. Lucy raises an eyebrow. But since you needed to be cuffed in the sea stone, you were sent here. It was thought that the attentions of the women-starved men here would punish you similarly. But then you went and killed someone and ripped a guy's balls off, and you've been causing trouble ever since. Balloon Man sucks, she decides. She doesn't like him. They deserved it, Lucy snaps. Asshole. If you did the same thing I'd kill you and rip your balls off to little stunned. Please, Queen Sama, have mercy on this nice young lady. I take full responsibility for her actions. Lucy frowns and looks at her fellow prisoner. Oi, old man. Don't go making it worse for yourself. That just makes him start to tear up more, which is something Lucy finds confusing. What shall we do with you, Straw Hat? Balloon asks. His smile is threatening, and Lucy frowns at him, waiting for him to get to the point. Your ridiculous strength scares the crap out of people, and you refuse to be intimidated. So what should we have done instead? Stripped you naked and tied you to a post? Flogged you? Lucy glowers. Contrary to popular belief, she can recognize a threat when she hears it. But that seems a little trite. Besides, you're too dangerous to be left alive, so we will instead cut off your head, sportingly. And then he goes on some long bullshit spiel about executions and getting knocked out of a sumo ring and yada yada yada. He unlocks her cuffs. It's like breathing clean air after drowning, like drinking water at Yuba. It's like seeing Zoro again after a long separation. There's a weight lifted from her chest, her lungs are able to expand properly for the first time in 5 days, and strength rushes into her bones. A fair shot, huh? Maybe Balloon isn't so bad. Immediately she seeks out her crew, and sure enough there are 8 stars scattered across the island, brilliant and focused and determined. None of the ones with haki are close enough to sense her, but she flares her presence anyway to let them know she's here. Balloon notices and frowns at her. She grins. "I won't rip your balls off when you lose to me," she promises. It's pretty generous, she thinks. Balloon gapes at her and Old Man stutters an apology for her, but he shouldn't. This is Lucy in her element. Fighting and clawing her way to the top of the world. "Hey, Old Man," she interrupts. "Let's eat a lot when we get out of here." Old Man doesn't look like he believes they're going anywhere, but Lucy will show him. She always does. There's more than one kind of chain, and Lucy's neck may be shackled but she's freer than anyone else in this place. The door slides open. Zoro's awareness lifts from dead to the world to dozing. There's an odd clatter as the intruder walks into the building, and a cool familiarity to the presence. He opens his eyes to find Brook staring at him, open-mouthed and projecting shock. "Brook," he asks, still a little groggy. "How the hell did he find Zoro? What?" He tries to sit up. Can't. When he looks down there's an arm slung across his waist and a knee over his thigh. And when he follows these limbs back to their source he finds Hiyori pressed against his back, spooning against him and Toko squished happily between them. Zoro rolls out from under her so fast he tears the stitches in his shoulder. Both Hiyori and Toko wince at the sudden cold and huddle together for continued warmth, but they don't wake up. Zoro turns, slowly, to look at Brook. Brook, in turn, has not stopped staring at Zoro. Brook raises a single bony finger and wavers it between Zoro and the still sleeping girls and hisses, "Betrayal." It's not what it looks like, Zoro tries, but Brook's bones are starting to clatter in the way that they do when he's really pissed. Infidelity. Mutiny. Treason. Brook, shut the fuck up, that's not what happened and you know it. Poor Captain, betrayed by the one who professed his loyalty so many times, Brook sobs, and Zoro squawks at him in outrage. Who will keep me in the divorce, I wonder? Zoro grits his teeth. She stitched me up. We fell asleep. On opposite sides of the bed. He gestures wildly. There's a kid. Is that what you will tell Lucy-san? Brook asks primly, voice clipped. Zoro throws his hands up in dismay. And of course, now is when Hiyori and Toko choose to wake up. Zorojiro-san. Hiyori calls, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Why are you? She freezes. Looks at Brook. May I see your panties? Brook asks, like that's a normal thing to ask a person. Zoro's not even surprised when Hiyori screams. Rayleigh is a pretty clever old man. Lucy knew that already, but this time she's going to deck him for it. Honestly, would it have been that hard to be like, Lucy, you can use observation haki to see the future. Here's how, or, Lucy, there's better armament out there where you don't touch your opponents. He left me on Ruskina for 6 months. I could have learned this. She growls and tries again to use the strange haki Rayleigh once demonstrated. She fails, again. She's not actually mad at him. He warned her that she needed to face real obstacles to grow from their first training session. And he told her enough that she at least knows what she needs to do. It's the how that's giving her trouble. Kaido's hide is thick. She needs something that can penetrate it. This technique can do that. Regular armament feels like a hardening, like rooting her very skin in place. All will and drive and unshakable resolve. This new technique is different though, it's more, outward. Thicker? She's not sure. She can't quite grasp it. Then Old Man translates her muttering into something he can actually understand and pulls it off, with effort. And it clearly takes a lot out of him, but he does it. Teach me, she pleads, and the old man smiles. It's called Ryu, with the meaning of flow. It's so antithetical to what she thinks of as armament that she can't even visualize it. She's supposed to use her unused haki to do it, which is strange too. She's in the habit of rationing that as much as possible. Then the old man tells her haki won't flow to an angry fist, and she thinks of her mental state during the fight with Kaido. Anger has made her more powerful in the past, given her fuel to keep fighting and push past her limits. But bloodlust like that is double-edged. She can't control it and hone it the way Zoro does, she just loses her cool. She's not sure she could have reacted any other way when fighting Kaido over Leftover Town. She thought he killed half her crew and Tama. But she keeps hearing Kaido say not like that, and she keeps wondering what he meant. Was he looking down on her when he said it, giving her a hint? How strange and annoying. She doesn't want to accept help from an enemy. Not like that. Maybe he was just calling her weak. The thought makes her bare her teeth, because Lucy has promised herself so many times that she will never be so weak that she can't protect her nakama again. And she was too weak when it came to Kaido. She needs this to work. She needs it. Ryu, with the meaning of flow. She tries to feel her haki, tries to look for currents in it and pulsing veins. She can do this. She can do this. Lucy fights, and Lucy tries, and Lucy fails. Old man sits on her back and counsels calm. She reaches for her crew because the reassurance sets her at ease, and lets out a long, slow breath when she finds them. She can do this. She can do this. Lucy fights, and Lucy tries, and Lucy fails. Lucy stays rooted in her calm, and fights again. It was cold, Hiyori tells him later, after Brooke gives him one too many dirty looks and snide comments and he asks her what the hell she was thinking crawling all over him like that. Fires die out at night. Besides, most men do not mind when I sleep next to them. Zoro scowls at her. I told you to back off. She looks a little offended, then curious. Do you prefer men? Zoro slaps his palm to his forehead. Brooke titters out a high-pitched giggle. No, he growls, not bothering to explain. Hiyori squints at him with incomprehension. Zoro doesn't really care and elects to ignore her. Brooke, where are the others at? The skeleton hums, teeth clattering lightly. Well, as you know, our lovely captain, who deserves a loyal partner, is currently in Udon. Raizo is working on getting her out. Zoro raises an eyebrow. Security's that tight? Brooke settles and gives Zoro a more serious look than the man is usually capable of. Yes. Zoro purses his lips, considering what to do what he has to, and he intends to follow through on that. What he has to do might be getting her out of jail though, if she hasn't made strides to doing it already. The others I'm not sure about, Brooke tells him. Kinemon said I'm too conspicuous, that I should wait here until the raid. Brooke then gives Zoro another pointed glance. And what should I find here but a swordsman lying with another woman when he's already taken? Hiyori raises an eyebrow at him. Taken? Shut up, Brooke, you know it wasn't like that. He'd literally commit harakiri before betraying Lucy, and the skeleton damn well knows it. He witnessed the most dramatic example himself. Zorojiro, Brooke scolds. How could you not only betray our captain but lead on this lovely lady as well? Oi, can it bone man, that's not how it is. Your captain, Hiyori repeats, an odd look on her face. Your partner is your captain. The one who gave you Enma? Zoro backs off from threatening Brooke for long enough to look at her. Lucy's my girlfriend, yeah. Something very complicated crosses Hiyori's face. Zoro wishes Lucy was here. She's better at this stuff than he is, and she would just kind of know why it is that Hiyori looks at Enma like it holds the key to enlightenment. I see, Hiyori says finally. Tell me again how she recovered Enma. Zoro frowns at her. No clue, she probably stole it. Hiyori frowns, disliking the answer. Zoro doesn't really care either way, he's only holding on to it until he gets Shisui back. Lucy and Hiyori can figure out anything else after that. Enma moans something that sounds disturbingly like laughter. Zoro ignores this. Brooke, tell me about the prison. Zoro redirects. Lucy's okay, right? She sounds fine. Like she's leveling the place, practically. He heard her voice ringing as soon as he woke up this morning and got Brooke to stop yelling. He's too far away to get anything distinct, but she's vibrantly alive and fighting, that's for damn sure. It's exactly what he expected of her. Brooke's fingers thrum against his mug of tea, then she probably is. Zoro narrows his gaze. You're not telling me something. Brooke sighs, and looks out at the snowy landscape of Wano. She was injured rather extensively in her fight with Kaido. Raizo was first able to reach her 2 days ago. Brooke looks down into his mug. He said she looked exhausted. Her injuries are healing slowly, too. That's kind of odd for Lucy. She can fall asleep almost anywhere. The middle of a street, flopped over a ship's railing, squashed between two buildings, prison shouldn't be an issue. And her devil fruit heals her almost instantly. She was up and walking a few hours after getting stabbed through with molten metal. Is she? Hiyori interrupts, biting her lip. She looks pensive. Is she very strong, your captain? Of course. The strongest. Hiyori nods slowly, a lock of hair falling over her shoulder, the only imperfection of her otherwise neat appearance. She looks at Zoro again, her gaze properly focused. And you can sense that she is all right. Even from here? You're certain? Zoro frowns at her. She's weirdly interested in this. She sounds like she's starting a riot. Brook titters a laugh. That sounds like our Lucy-san, he coos fondly. Zoro agrees, but he watches Hiyori all the same. She doesn't look reassured. What does she have to be concerned about anyway? Zoro is about to ask, but then Brook laughs again and says, "Oh, if she takes down the prison that'll be hilarious. 2 riots at once." Take down the prison? Hiyori repeats incredulously. How? 2 riots? Zoro presses. Lucy can handle udon. Whatever is happening. She sounds fine. Where's the other one? Oh, they're executing someone in the capital. A man named Tonoyasu. What? Toko yelps, already on her feet. She's shaking and she sounds terrified, but still there's a smile on her face, wide and unnerving. That's my daddy. And she laughs. Lucy has seen executions before. It happened sometimes in Goa. When one of the great terminal residents pissed off the nobles enough, there would be an execution. Something outside the city, to remind people that just because they didn't bother with it, great terminals still belonged to the rich. She and Ace and Sabo watched one together. It was over before any of them really knew what was happening, and she cried for days after. Ace saw another one, when he was 13, and he didn't let Lucy follow him that day. Managed to give her the slip by pawning her off on Makino. She never had any proof, but she always suspected Ace went to the execution to try and stop it. She knows it didn't work. Another one happened when she was 15. Ace wasn't there to stop her from going. She didn't succeed either. Buggy tried to kill her in Logatown. She didn't die. The dragons on Sabodi shot a slave in front of her, and then tried to kill Hachin. Then of course, there was Ace. Yasui's death marks the 5th public execution she's witnessed if her own doesn't count, and she's older and more prepared for it now. It still hurts, watching it. Seeing old man cry over the victim. How could they laugh? She asks softly, staring at the crowd. She doesn't understand. She sees Zoro on the light transponder. A woman she doesn't recognize is clinging to him, her face buried in his kimono. She can feel the erupting of his rage from udon like the buckling of a tectonic plate, and is entirely unsurprised when he and Sanji blow their cover to rescue the child. She would have serious questions if they didn't do at least that much. She feels it the moment Zoro swears to kill Orochi, the echo of his heart loud and angry. She feels that kind of promise bubbling on her lips too, when old man explains the smile fruit's curse. Torao said it was necessary, back on Punk Hazard. She didn't know until now how right he was. Tama would have eaten something like that. Most of her crew is in the capital, bearing witness to the execution. She regrets that, is sorry towards them for having to see it firsthand, even if she knows most of them have seen worse. At least Chopper isn't there. He'd be right in there with the little girl, trying to heal a dead man. She's just getting ready to settle in and watch her crew kick ass when Jaggy's brought in. There are tears in his eyes, staring at the tall blonde man chained before him. "What happened to you, killer?" he asks, and Lucy watches as her rival falls to pieces, right there in the prison yard, while his first mate laughs. Jaggy's not a bad captain, she decides. He cares about his crew, worries for them even when the man he loves looks at him like he's a stranger. They could use a guy like that. Toko screams all the way to the capital. She runs, the 3 adults run after her, and Zoro can admit to being disturbed and confused by her behavior and the oddity of Yasu's execution, but by the time they arrive it's far too late to change anything. The laughing though, it's the laughing he doesn't understand. Someone died, he says, bewildered. A kind, funny old man, who has a kid and who seemingly knew all there was to know about this country and who even Zoro liked. Hiyori grabs his sleeve, and for once he doesn't tell her to back off. They're all crying, she whispers, sounding wretched. It's just, their tears were stolen from them. Zoro feels the lock he keeps on his rage rattle. He has felt such things a few times, with Robin's kidnapping, and on Sabodi. But here in this chaos, with Toko unable to weep for her dead father and clinging to him after the ugly snake almost shot her, he feels Asura wend into his bones, searing him with fire. Kitetsu sings burning anticipation, and even Wado Ichimonji is screaming in the face of the demon's blood-black howl. Enma moans loud enough to open the gates of hell, and Zoro's inclined to let it. He turns on Orochi with every intention of bringing him down right then and there. No raid required. He's going to see the end of this vermin and the world will thank him for Ishole with some actual skill with a katana gets in his way. Zoro draws Enma before he can think twice about it, which is stupid, but Asura is seeping into his blood, and the only thing he can think about is cutting Orochi's head off. Blue Guy narrows his eyes when he sees it, the smile faltering. Lucy, where the hell did you get this katana? Blue Guy is better than Kamazo. He's quick and agile enough to rival even Lucy, and his swordsmanship is technically perfect. He even has enough strength to rebuff the full force of Zoro's attacks. On another day, Zoro would enjoy a fight with him, would rush forward with his blood pumping hard in the face of a challenge, but right now his blades are full of rage and righteousness and he doesn't have the luxury of enjoying the fight. Orochi's carriage is getting away. He's got no time. Enma seeps into him, already seeking purchase in his haki, his blood. Zoro narrows his gaze on the carriage, and then on Blue, and makes a decision that he's pretty sure Chopper will kill him for later. There is rage in Zoro, a thing he normally keeps under lock and key, honed tightly and used sparingly because it is a terrible thing to behold, and worse to carry around. He thinks of how it feels to be pitied and his hatred of loneliness and weakness, how it feels to hear Lucy scream and all the terrible things he's ever done and the worst things he would do if he needed to. He thinks of his nightmare on the Polar Tang, with half his crew dead and Lucy broken and the dark place inside his heart throbs with rage and violent intent. Blue is not deterred by the change in his aura, even as the remaining people around him scream. Enma reaches for his bloodlust eagerly, and Zoro holds it back, barely. He just needs a clean shot. He places Enma in his mouth. Wado resonates in his palm like cool, clean water, his only hope for sanity and calm between Kitetsu's wails and Enma's greed. Zoro lines up his stance. Last chance, before Orochi gets away. Blue notices the change and hums. Zoro rushes him, a two-sword tower climb return curling from Wado and Kitetsu. Blue has to hold it, has to deflect, and Zoro puts enough force into the blow to make that difficult. And while he's still in the air, still coming out of the movement of the attack, he feeds Enma everything. Bloodlust. Rage. As much haki as he can spare. You can have this and no more, he thinks to the blade sternly, and Enma howls in resentment even as it gluts itself on Zoro's offering. Zoro attacks with all three blades. The weight of the dragon twister is off because he's so used to Shisui and moving is painful as it never is because he must hold back enough of himself to stay alive in the face of Enma's parasitic consumption, but it works. And Blue yells and Zoro hits the ground just in time to see Orochi's carriage explode. The windows on every house between Zoro and Orochi blown out and a gash in the street that could be a trench. Blue pants in wide-eyed disbelief, and Zoro struggles to breathe, ripping himself back from Enma as the katana tries to drain him in his exhaustion. It's harder when it's trying to eat his face, and he meets resistance, the blade sensing weakness in him. Zoro snarls and takes what is his back from the blade. He rolls over onto his back, and slots Enma at his hip. It howls and hungers and Zoro ignores it, holding Wado and Kitetsu in each hand as he struggles to his knees in case Blue attacks. On the other end of the street, the lid of the carriage blows up and out, and from inside emerges something huge and scaly with multiple heads and eyes like a snake's. It howls and spits rage and it takes Zoro a second to realize it's Orochi. "How dare you cut off my head?" The shogun roars, and his scaly body rushes down the street towards the two swordsmen. Zoro growls, pushes to his feet. Using Enma isn't an option, he's too drained, but he's going to make it past Blue and make sure Orochi's dead for real this time regardless. The people from Ebisu town are still laughing. But then Blue surprises him, turns his back to Zoro with a nod like he trusts the swordsman not to stick Kitetsu in it, and tosses a lazy, "See you around," before running toward his boss. Zoro gives chase, but he's forced to slow when he hacks up blood. His stupid shoulder isn't healed yet, he was betting it all on that move. Blue gets ahead of him to meet Orochi, grabs one of the snake's many heads, and then they disappear from sight. Zoro huffs, unable to track their movements with haki. Blue is talented, if he can cover for Orochi as well as himself. Fucking cowards. Doing something like that and not sticking around to finish the fight. Zoro replaces his blades to their scabbards and sighs, turning to look at the execution platform. Yasuo's body is gone, hopefully claimed by one of the Straw Hats and not the men who killed him. There's a pool of blood where he died, mixing with the dirt. The prisoners behind it are still wailing so hard it's like they mean to be heard across Wano. Things are always so complicated here. Or maybe they just feel more complicated without Lucy around to cut through all the bullshit. Zoro doesn't do vengeance. It's not his thing, he doesn't like it, doesn't like the way it makes him fight. Like he's carrying something else in his blades beside his oaths. But he swears on Wado Ichimonji itself. He's not leaving Wano until Orochi is dead, and Zoro can visit Yasuo's grave without shame. Amid the chaos of liberating Udon and Big Mom showing up and a bunch of other weird nonsense, Lucy looks for Raizo. "Do you still have the keys to the cuffs?" she asks, and he hands them over. Lucy nods her gratitude, and makes her way over to Jaggy. He's silent and steaming when she unlocks his cuff, but he snatches the key out of her hand when she goes to free his first mate. She hangs back, watching. Jaggy unlocks the cuffs, but Masky remains unconscious. Jaggy doesn't speak or turn back to her, but she sees his hand shaking. Lucy waits for a moment, she doesn't have much time. "Jaggy?" No response. Jaggy won't stop staring at Masky, doesn't even react to her voice. His first mate is still smiling, even in sleep. Lucy lets out a slow breath, painfully sympathetic. There's a strange kind of rage simmering in her veins, powerful but felt almost distantly, secondhand, as if possessing her. It colors her voice just a bit too much. "If it was my crew, I'd kill the ones responsible. A person who can't even cry will never be free." Jaggy's fist clenches. "If it was Zoro, I'd make it hurt." No response. Lucy purses her lips. Caesar's lab was destroyed. Frankie took out Mingo's factory. All that's left is Kaido. Lucy tells him, and the only sign he's heard her at all is the soft hiss through grit teeth. "Want to help?" He doesn't respond at all for a long time. Longer than she has to spare on this. Then, "Straw Hat," he whispers, his voice dark and his whole aura vengeful, "I'm going to burn them all alive." Lucy stares at him for one beat, then two. She looks at Masky one last time, thinks of the kid who was forced to laugh over her father's smiling body, and lets a sliver of the rage in her veins show, cracking the lid on her haki. Jaggy's shoulders go rigid in response, hunching protectively toward his prone partner, and she hears the faint moans of terror from her defeated foes. "I'm going to get Kaido," she promises, "help me." Jaggy growls, low in his throat. Lucy just lets her conquerors rise to the surface and answer. "I want Kaido's head," he agrees finally. Lucy's smile is all bared teeth and challenge. "Not if I get it first." Jaggy hisses and glares at her, finally looking away from Masky. Whatever he sees in her face makes him relax into his more usual aggression, his eyes burning rage and a feverish need to avenge. But there's challenge there too, like she'd hoped there would be. The drive they relied upon while wearing the cuffs, the need to compete and push forward. He'll get up on his own now. She's sure of it. Lucy stands, tipping her hat down over her eyes. She walks over to knock out of the pit, and pulls an object off his back. He doesn't stir. She tosses the prize to Jaggy, letting it bounce off his chest. He growls at her until he realizes what it is. The mask is dull and probably not as strong as Masky's old one, but it would at least serve the same purpose psychologically. She doesn't look back at them, feeling Jaggy's muted surprise through haki just a little too clearly. Later, she calls. She moves away, figuring Jaggy probably needs a little privacy. She doesn't say anything when she walks by them later and sees the mask tucked into Masky's obi. And she will never, ever tell anyone about how Jaggy's hand clenched so hard in the fabric of his first mate's sleeve that it threatens to rip at the seams. He finds Hiyori in the street, making a nuisance of herself, and they end up fleeing the capital while Zoro deflects shuriken and blow darts. The Oniwabanshu are targeting both of them, but especially Hiyori, and Zoro's a little worried they found out who she is before she reassures him that no, she just made herself notorious under her other alias as well. Zoro would call her out on that, but one person recognizes him from his Ronin wanted poster and another cries out in gratitude toward the vengeance of Curry, and he decides he doesn't have much room to talk. He looks around for the rest of the crew before he flees the capital, but they disappeared with Otoko and hopefully Tonoyasu's body while he was trying to kill Orochi. It sucks, but it's probably smart, better for protecting everyone's cover. Zoro doesn't have a plan for where to go, but Hiyori guides them toward Hakumai, and Zoro lets her. It's the one prefecture of Wano he hasn't really been to yet, and it's nice. The trees are always in a state of perpetual autumn, leaves gold and sunset orange. It feels oddly settling, being here. Eventually they reach an old shrine, and Enma grows eerily calm as they draw near. The malevolent groans shift to mournful warbles, and the katana spills histories Zoro can't hope to grasp. The shrine itself looks familiar. There's an identical one in Shimotsuki village, behind the dojo and near a waterfall Zoro used to train under. The energy of this place feels similar too. Why here? He asks her as they approach. It feels, he trails off, not sure how to explain. Hiyori hums, looking around. Kaido and Orochi may have destroyed this country, but people still remember, and this is sacred ground. The Shimotsuki always did have an affinity for Enma. She gives him a look like she expects that to mean something to him. It doesn't. Zoro grunts. The god of hell, right? Zoro ignored most of the lectures on religion at the dojo and he doesn't believe any of it, but Sensei managed to drill some of it into his head anyway. Hiyori nods slowly, looking deeply curious. Yes. The god of hell. They say he came from other shores long ago, before the people of Wano adopted him as their own. She looks around and Zoro does the same. The shrine is dilapidated, the shutters broken and hanging off of hinges, two of the pillars burned as if someone tried to set the place on fire. The altar inside the shrine is cracked, and the statue of Enma lays on its side with an arm broken off. The sense of abandonment about the place is hard to ignore. No one took care of it when the Shimotsuki left. Zoro asks. It's sad, in a way he doesn't know how to articulate. They died, Hiyori says sadly. The rest of us are just trying to get through the next day. Zoro nods, understanding. There are no villages around here anymore, and they're probably the shrine's first visitors in ages. The altar is bothering him though. He approaches, and carefully clears away the splintered wood of the platform. He gathers it and sets it along the sturdiest of the walls, and writes the statue of the god. There's nothing he can do about the arm, but he lays it respectfully next to the idol. Enma rattles in its scabbard when it's set to rights, and Zoro adjusts the incense burners, smoothing the sand with his fingers with the vague notion that it seems more respectful than shaking the ashes flat. It's not much. At least it doesn't feel so sad in here though. He claps his hands together and gives a short nod of his head to pay respects. More to the people that built this place and died rebelling than to the god. That was kind of you, Hiyori praises quietly. Her eyes are large and very bright. Are you sure you are an outsider? You have the Shimotsuki eyes. Zoro does not flinch. He's always been an outsider, with everyone but his crew, but he does give her a sideways glance. A coincidence, he warns. Hiyori purses her lips but doesn't push. A few more Oniwabanshu pop out of the woodwork. Zoro fends them off easily, and sits beside Hiyori at the steps of the shrine. The air feels light in Hakumai, and the amber leaves make the shrine deceptively peaceful. I am sorry I am such a burden, the princess offers. She looks tired in a way Zoro hasn't seen from her before. I'd have to answer to Momonosuke if I let you die, he tells her. It's true anyway, but it's not like he'd just leave her to her fate after all the bullshit he's suffered so far trying to keep her alive. Still, she says, and her smile is much sadder now than it was in Ringo. Thank you. Zoro doesn't respond. They need a plan for where to go next. Again, he finds himself not far from Udon. He can feel Lucy faintly, and the cacophony of her voice as she burns. She's shaking things up because of course she is. Lucy wouldn't escape from prison without taking everyone in it with her. He smiles to himself, palm burning on Kidetsu's hilt as he faces Udon. Well, if she's that lively, he doesn't think she needs him, regardless of Brook and Hiyori's weird hesitations about the place. She better hurry though, because he's not going to wait for her much longer. It's stupid, being apart like this when they could be fighting side by side. I need to get my katana, he realizes aloud. That's what he has to do next, Hiyori though. He looks toward her, questioning if Ringo is really where she should go. It's not a terrible place to bring a princess in hiding. The region is mostly empty, abandoned like Enma's shrine. Hiyori's expression is firm and unwavering. I can lead you back there. The guardian always waits by that bridge. Hiyori frowns. Do you really need it though? You have Enma. Zoro raises an eyebrow and shakes his head. It's my katana. Hiyori looks thoughtful, and stares at Enma's hilt for a long moment. The wind rustles through the autumnal treetops, and behind them the shrine creaks. Let's go to Ringo. Then I'll take you to Momonosuke. Well, maybe to Lucy first if she's still in Udon. Seriously, he would have broken her out days ago if he knew she was going to take this long. Hikumai seems to close ranks around them, makes the paths through the forest feel private and the trek to Ringo casual. Most of the villages left in Hikumai exist along the coast, and cutting through the interior takes them past the ruins of homes and empty communities. Zoro thinks of Yasu, thinks he'd probably have plenty to say about this place, about the people that once inhabited it. He would have known how to take care of Enma's shrine, too. The trees and twisting paths provide good cover for the Oniwabanshu. By the time they cross the border to Ringo, Zoro has killed 2 more ninja, and Hiyori looks close to tears, which is stupid. She shouldn't cry over traitors. He tells her as much and she just shakes her head. It is not for them, she explains, and there's a red flush on her face. I am just grateful to you. Something in the way she's looking at him reminds him of Lucy in Starlight, and a suspicion forms in his head. Embarrassed by the idea, he turns away from her and marches on. I'm just doing what my captain would expect, Zoro replies lowly. And that's true, too. Lucy would expect him to help someone like Hiyori, who is an ally and who helped him and did nothing wrong. She'd expect him to do it for his own sake though, not think too hard about why he chose now of all times to remind Hiyori of Lucy's existence. It's not worth it. He's just being arrogant, maybe paranoid, definitely awkward. She sounds remarkable, Hiyori replies. She pulls her traveling cloak around her shoulders. Will you tell me about her? The genuineness of her interest makes him feel stupid about his own suspicions. She wouldn't want to hear about Lucy if he was right about it. Zoro considers it, trying to think about what to even say. He's never had to describe Lucy to anyone before. You'll probably meet her soon enough, Zoro points out. Talking about Lucy could become embarrassing very quickly. I was a courtesan in the court of the man who killed my father, Hiyori muses aloud. I found it is very telling, what people will say about others. And I would like to know the person my brother chose to save us through the eyes of one who has faith in her. That's reasonable. Zoro huffs a deep breath, and rests a hand on Kitetsu's hilt. It's cold under his palm, the blade screaming that he's going the wrong way. She's an idiot, he says bluntly, but a little too fondly as well, selfish. A glutton, and kind of careless. Hiyori raises an eyebrow. I was under the impression you and your skeleton friend respect her a great deal. And she is your partner? Zoro nods. She's the brightest thing in any room. She's the strongest person I know. Words fail him. He can't articulate the depth of his loyalty, and he's not sure he wants to. That wouldn't even explain why he's loyal to her, let alone why he loves her. He definitely doesn't want to explain the way she gave him a family, a purpose. He could barely choke it out to Lucy. I said she's careless, but you can rely on her. She'll help your people. She loves a kid that lives here. Hiyori is quiet for a long time, the leaves crunching under her heel. A whole country for a child she must barely know, Hiyori says finally. Against Orochi. Against Kaido. She looks up at Zoro, her eyes hard. Such a person does not exist. Zoro shrugs. He's done his best. You'll have to meet her for yourself. Hiyori takes another moment to ponder. Ahead of them the forest is thinning out, and the air is growing colder. It's invigorating. Can she win? Hiyori asks finally, and Zoro studies her again. Hiyori spoke of her brother's return as if it was a natural fact of life, a truth that she was waiting for like she waits for the weather to turn. But now there's a harder look on her face born of a fragile sort of hope, that the return of her family would actually bring Wano victory. Lucy will win. Zoro tells her. He has no doubt of it, and he lets Hiyori see that and firm up her own faith. Hiyori looks away, the heel of her palm rubbing against her eyes under her hood. Zoro does her the courtesy of ignoring her tears and doesn't comment, not even when her sniffles become quiet sobs and her shoulders heave. Instead, Zoro thinks of Lucy, marvels at his girlfriend's ability to save people she hasn't even met, and hears the winds of Ringo welcome him back. At Udon, Lucy was nearly assaulted, propped up on an execution platform, nearly killed by an emperor, and watched her crew face the execution of a well-loved man. The final indignity she suffers at Udon is reaching her arms around infected prisoners and joining them in their illness. She swore, "I will choose the place of my death," and she promised, "I have always been free." She may have spoken her defiance to Balloon, but she was saying it for the enslaved people in this damn quarry, who needed to see the chains in their hearts before they could be free. Lucy puts her body on the line for the sake of it, accepts without fear their disease and their accusations and their apathy, and throws a gauntlet in their faces while Chopper screams at her in outrage. The infection hurts, feels like acid on her skin and like poison in her blood, but she's far too pissed off to care about something like that. Besides, she's immune to poison, sort of. These people have hope now, if only they'd be willing to take it. "There's a kid here I'm trying to save," Lucy tells them. "She fed me, and I want to make sure she eats well tomorrow. Help her." The infected men stare at her in awe, with horror and shock in their eyes. Behind her, Chopper hovers with worry, but even he knows not to interrupt this, knows not to let this moment go. She's laid a challenge at these men's feet, a lifeline. It's up to them to take it. A man in his 30s, skinny and tired looking and bruised, sits up. He trembles and looks down in shame. "We're afraid, Lucy no Jo-san," he tells her. "I can't move, I'm so afraid, I can barely breathe." Lucy nods and the world spins. She walks over to him on shaky legs, the infection spreading. "You can't breathe because you're sick. Chopper will heal you," she promises, and ignores her doctor muttering angrily behind her. "You can't move because you're tired. You can sleep and eat before the fight." She stands before the man and reaches out to him, her wrists bloody from the sea stone and her arms covered in icy green illness. "You're afraid. You can survive that way, but you can only live if you're free." The man's eyes spill over with tears. His fingertips brush hers, and he lets her take his hand as he nods. "I want to be free," he admits quietly, and then louder, to his fellows, "I want to be free." A cheer like a roar rises up around the grounds, loud enough that the shaking of the quarry feels like its own voice. Lucy feels their hope ignite like a match lights gas, sudden and spreading. She grins, and grips the stranger by the elbow. "Of course you do," Lucy praises. "Of course you do." The man smiles back, shaky and weak, and around them promised joy burns infection right from their bodies. "Like this," Lucy thinks to herself as her vision blurs and Chopper guides her to the ground. "Of course we'd fight like this." And she swears. A song rises from the earth to curl in her ear, but it's gone before she passes out completely.